The third generation of the Dark Lord comes from Hogwarts. Chapter 41. Inside the headmaster's office at Hogwarts. Mrs. Molly and Arthur Weasley looked serious and glared at Ron. Ron huddled behind Harry like a fertilized quail, not daring to look up. As the protagonists of a series of events, Argus and Draco were also invited to the principal's office. Ron, did you turn a deaf ear to what I said? I just finished sending you a letter, and you dare to do such a thing. I couldn't believe it when Professor McGonagall came over. Mrs. Molly took out her mother's blood to suppress it and scolded Ron. His fiery temper didn't even dare to interrupt Dumbledore. When he saw Harry, his expression softened instantly. He pulled Harry into his arms. Oh, Harry, it's so good to see you, darling. Poor child. I'm hurting you. Don't worry, I will give Ron a good warning. Turning to glare at Ron. Did you hear that? If there is a next time, without Professor McGonagall coming forward, your father and I will take you home in person. On the other side, Arthur faced the two Yagas with a very sincere attitude. Even Draco, who was at odds with the Weasley family, was willing to pay for Ron's mistakes. Mr. Grindelwald, regarding Ron, I am here to apologize to you. And, horse. Mr. Malfoy. Mr. Weasley does not need to pay attention to the conflicts between children. Yagas always maintains a good posture when he is in the spotlight. Respond politely to Arthur's apology. Seeing that he was not aggressive, Arthur breathed a sigh of relief. Mr. Grindelwald, your tolerance is admirable. You are welcome to visit the burrow at any time. 10-year-old Ginny looked curiously at the blue-eyed boy in front of her. The other party's gentle and elegant behavior left a deep impression on her. This is Ginny, my youngest daughter, starting school next year. Arthur proudly introduced them to Yagas. Only then did Yagas notice Harry's future wife. Although she is young, she has already shown her charm as the future school belle of Hogwarts. Smart and beautiful little witch, welcome to Hogwarts. Argus smiled gently at Ginny, and his sunny and handsome image made Ginny blush unconsciously. Thank you, thank you. It's getting late, we can't delay Mr. Grindelwald's class. Arthur called out to Molly, interrupting her scolding Ron. Be honest and don't cause trouble for me again. Molly, who was not calm, left her last words and followed Arthur to say goodbye to everyone. Just as Argus was about to leave with everyone, Dumbledore, who had been silent, spoke. Mr. Grindelwald, please wait a moment. There are some things I wish I could talk to you about. Yagas thought for a moment and smiled again. Of course, Mr. Principal. After everyone left, Dumbledore asked again. Mr. Grindelwald, what would you like to order? How about a pile of cockroaches? No need, Mr. Principal, if you have any questions, just tell me. Argus didn't want to waste time with Dumbledore, so he decisively refused. Dumbledore sighed, took out a piece of cockroach pile, soaked it in milk, and took a sip. Show a look of enjoyment. Mr. Grindelwald, as the principal, I am sorry for everything you suffered in the school. Feel sorry. Yagas smiled. If you were truly sorry, you would have shown up long before Ron grabbed something from his flying lesson. Is it worth waiting until now? If Professor McGonagall hadn't been upright, Ron would have never been in trouble. Old B. Mr. Principal, you have many things to deal with every day, and it is impossible to cover everything. Ron's fault is his own and has nothing to do with you. His answer was very sarcastic, mocking Dumbledore's incompetence as the principal in every aspect. Dumbledore acted as if he didn't understand. Not only did he not refute, but he continued what he said. Yeah, Ron's fault is ultimately his own fault. If Harry continues to be influenced by him, in the future. Stop. Argus heard that there was something wrong in Dumbledore's words and quickly stopped. Mr. Principal, who Harry wants to be friends with is his own choice. Whoever is affected by it can only bear it himself. I know. Dumbledore spoke slowly. But Ron is no longer suitable to be Harry's friend, at least, not his closest friend. Who is he not suitable for? Me. Yagas scoffed. When he raised his head, he found that Dumbledore was watching him silently, and he couldn't help but feel shocked. You want me to take Ron's place? Dumbledore was also helpless. If he had any other choice, he would not choose Yagas. In the past few days, he has screened all the candidates. Neville is too cowardly to stand up for anything. Seamus can only make explosions, has average talent, and has an average family, so he cannot be Harry's solid backing. Hermione, a pure Argus fangirl, had a very bad attitude towards Harry because of Ron's matter, and she didn't want to deal with him. Not to mention Draco. After much deliberation, the only one who can use it is Yagus. Even if he doesn't want to, he can only hold his nose and swallow. No matter what, with Argus here, Harry won't be as crooked as Ron. Forget it, I don't have time to look after children. Yagus decisively refused. You don't need to be with him all the time like Ron, as long as you give him the right guidance at certain times. I really don't want you to be by Harry's side all the time, and I don't feel at ease. In just a few days, Dumbledore saw Argus's charisma. The whole school is full of his little fans. Even the professor was full of praise when talking about him. In desperation, he had no choice but to adopt this compromise method to control Argus' influence on Harry. If that's the case, you can consider it, but I have a condition. Tell me. I have several shops opening soon in Diagon Alley. I hope you can help me solve the trouble from the pure blood family. This shouldn't be a difficult problem for you, right? Yagus put forward this condition after careful consideration. The Saints had just entered Britain and had a shallow foundation. It would not be wise to have a head-on conflict with a large number of pure blood families. But if you don't show some strength, you will inevitably be regarded as a soft persimmon. Trouble continued. At this time, it is the best choice to pull Dumbledore's banner and show off his power. These purebloods did not dare to take action against Dumbledore. Even if they wanted to do something to them, they had to worry about Dumbledore's attitude. As for giving guidance to Harry, please, you said it was some time. When should I help him? It's not up to me. Yagus's little calculation was crackling. Dumbledore said nothing, obviously considering the pros and cons of this matter. After a while, he nodded slowly. He can only control the affairs of a few shops. With his energy in the magic world, it is not difficult to clear up some troubles. It's a deal. Then I will wait for your promise. Yagus got the reply he wanted, bowed slightly and exited the principal's office. There was a trace of doubt in his eyes. Weird. This guy didn't even ask me about entering Quirrell's office. Argus was walking towards the Slytherin common room. The Weasley twins popped out of nowhere. One on the left and one on the right on both sides of Yagus. How does Mrs. Molly look when she's angry? Isn't it terrible? You two are smart and know how to hide away. That's right. George patted his chest proudly. That guy Percy went up to say hello stupidly, but he got scolded hard. I blame him for not disciplining little Ronnie properly and asking him to tell us and let us take good care of him. Oh my god, we're not the roundworms in Ronnie's belly. Fred was also helpless towards this brainless brother. Although they often get into trouble, they are rarely caught. Especially this kind of big event where one deduction is worth dozens of points. Otherwise, he would have been crushed to death by Gryffindor's spittle. This is not easy. Why don't you teach him the secret of not getting caught while wandering at night? Argus had been coveting the Marauders map in their hands for a long time, and deliberately brought the topic to it. Fred put his arm around Yagus' shoulders and mysteriously took Yagus to a deserted corner. He took out a crumpled piece of parchment from his arms. Yagus pretended to be confused. What is this? The two looked at each other and smiled. The secret to not getting caught while traveling at night. Come on, Fred, open the eyes of our sponsor. George and Fred took out their wands with serious expressions. I solemnly swear that I will not do bad things. As soon as he finished speaking, black ink lines appeared on the originally blank parchment. Outlined the entire topography of Hogwarts, including the Forbidden Forest. Names moved slowly on the map. Even Argus had to admire Harry's father's talent. Although several of them had not done many personnel tasks at Hogwarts, their talents were indeed first class. Decades have passed, and the tracking spell on the map has not faded at all. Can even see through the disguises of Animagus and Polyjuice Potion. Most people absolutely cannot do it. Not to mention that back then they were just a bunch of students with bigger farts. No wonder Snape was bullied by a few of them. Don't be surprised, we didn't do this. George smiled, very satisfied with Yagus's current expression. Yes, we stole it from Filch's office. No, took it out. It should be a gift left by a like-minded senior before graduation, hee hee. The two of them thrust the Marauder's map into Yagis's arms. Now, it's yours. Yagis didn't expect this thing to come so easily, and his eyes showed confusion. Fred smiled and explained, we have already remembered everything here clearly. It's useless to keep it, it's better to give it to our sponsor. The fewer times I get caught when I go out at night. That's right. George agreed. When you use it, you only need to say, prank ended, once to restore it to its original state. I'll put it to good use. Argos put the Marauder's map in his arms and nodded solemnly towards the two of them. The two laughed. Don't be so serious like Percy. Let's go, let's take you to see the new product we just developed, I'm sure it will surprise you. Maybe not today. A trace of apology appeared in Yagis's eyes. I haven't contacted my family for a long time. I will reply to my family later. It doesn't matter, there will be plenty of time in the future. The two of them didn't care, and Yagis finally understood why they were so popular even though they often played pranks. Good-tempered, playful and measured. Be tolerant and enthusiastic towards your friends. Almost a perfect pair of friends. After bidding farewell to the two, Argus returned to the Slytherin common room. Write a letter in code and tell Vita to come to Hogsmeade to pick you up in the next 2 days. After giving it to the owl, take out a large sum of gold galleons and go to Hagrid's hut. Ya. Is Hagrid here? Before entering the door, Yaya came to Yagis excitedly and waggled his tail. Yagos, you're here. Hagrid is happy every time he sees Yagis. As a hybrid giant, very few are willing to be friends with him. Naturally, every one of them is cherished very much. Let me take a look at the materials I asked you to prepare last time. If you have sorted them out, I will take them away today. It's all ready. They're all piled up in the warehouse. Come with me. Hagrid waved his hand and led Yagis to a wooden house not far away. As soon as he entered the door, Yagis was stunned by the scene in front of him. Originally, he thought that the materials in Hagrid's room were enough. Now it seems that it is just a drop in the bucket in the warehouse. Bundles of unicorn tail hairs were thrown aside like bundles of flax. The unicorn's horns are stacked higher than Gus. There are also a series of materials in the corner that Yagis did not expect, such as the teeth of the poison sac leopard, the feathers of the evil bird, the poisonous horns of the poison-horned beast, and so on. Seeing the rough arrangement of Hagrid, Yagis's heart was bleeding. These are all golden galleons. If you take out any one of them, you can sell a dozen or even dozens of them. He even had some doubts as to whether he had brought enough gold galleons. That's it. I haven't counted the exact number. Just take a look. Don't count these hairs one by one, just count them by the pound. Pound. What an unpopular word. This is the first time Yagis has heard that the tail hair of a unicorn can be measured in pounds. Did you sell this much to other stores before? Hagrid resented this very deeply. Of course not, those vampires, I don't want to give good things to them. What I sold to them was all dropped on the ground. I picked up some randomly. It's far different from what we have here. He stepped forward and patted Yagis on the shoulder, his expression somewhat proud. Well, I won't lie to my friends. You won't lie. But you are so down to earth. This must have been something you have been hoarding for many years. You really want to pluck me out all at once. Yagis smiled very stiffly, feeling like a poor man for the first time. That night, Yagis received a reply from Vita. The letter informed that she would arrive at Hogsmeade Village on Saturday this week, the night after tomorrow, and hoped that Argus would prepare in advance. After reading the letter, Yagis waved his magic wand, and a light blue flame ignited. Burned the letter paper cleanly. Saturday, the day after tomorrow. It seems that the time Voldemort originally agreed with me was also Saturday. It seems that it will be a lot of trouble at that time. Yagis had a headache. Fortunately, when he went to Hogsmeade, he lived in the dormitory of the chief Slytherin. Even if he was away at night, not many people would know. Voldemort wasn't that easy to deal with. I want to fool him, but I don't know how many brain cells I have to exhaust. It's Saturday afternoon. Hogwarts students have no classes on weekends. Most senior students will go to Hogsmeade Village to take advantage of the opportunity to spend money or play. The lower grades can only wander around the campus. Yagis adjusted his mentality and came to Quirrell's office. Mr. Grindelwald, you are very punctual. As soon as he entered the door, Voldemort's voice reached Argus's ears. Boom. The door closed with a click. Yagus said in a respectful tone, "This is what I should do, teacher." Ha ha ha. Voldemort was very satisfied with the teacher's call. He waved his hand, and the notes in Yagus's arms flew into his hands. As he flipped through the pages, the only sound left in the room was the rustling of paper. Very good, Yagus, it seems that you have been studying seriously during this period. Voldemort's eyes showed appreciation. The notes are densely packed with various thoughts and opinions, and one glance at them shows that they have been carefully read. No teacher will ever get bored of hardworking and talented students. Do you have a different view now about black magic? Yes. I used to think that evil thoughts were the criterion for judging black magic. But through the notes you gave me, I found that the nature of black magic and white magic seems to be different. A lot of white magic, even if it is studied to an extremely advanced level, is far less lethal than black magic. Voldemort put the notes on the table and said calmly, "The fact that you noticed this proves that you have touched the origin of magic." Origin. A trace of doubt flashed in Yagus's eyes. Yes, to put it simply, this is the original intention of the creation of magic. For example, the killing curse was created for the purpose of killing, while fluorescent flashes were created for lighting. When you use these two magics, there is a difference in belief. To a certain extent, black magic may not be more powerful than white magic, but its power is incomparable to white magic. Although Voldemort is called the Dark Lord, it does not mean that he does not understand white magic. On the contrary, his attainments in white magic are as good as anyone else. I understand, teacher, thank you for your advice. Yagus thanked him and continued to ask questions he had accumulated during this period. During this period, when I was practicing magic, I discovered that some curse spells are very similar to jinxes. But when I tried to combine several curses, I couldn't achieve the desired effect. Voldemort waved his wand, and an owl appeared out of nowhere on the blank table. Yagos, I have to say that you are very careful in your observations. Take the owl that is most commonly used by little wizards as an example. With a tap of the wand, the owl made a shrill cry. Voldemort frowned, waved his hand, and his voice disappeared. The owl opened its mouth wide, but could not make any sound. The body of an owl is composed of various parts such as skin, bones, blood, and flesh. But if you take them apart individually, the next second, the living owl was dismantled into various parts. The bloody organs irritated Yagus's eyeballs. But his expression didn't change at all, and even showed a little inquiry. Voldemort became increasingly satisfied and placed several organs directly in front of Argus' eyes. A perfect life is composed of these parts, but it does not mean that these parts combined together can constitute life. Yagus's eyes flashed. I understand, teacher. A spell may be composed of several other spells, but these spells require a certain order, a certain combination, and certain conditions. Only when all the elements are met can this curse be formed. That's right. In the following time, Yagus asked about the problems he had encountered recently. Regardless of his position, Voldemort is quite qualified as a teacher. Not only does he have a rich reserve of knowledge, but he also explains in a simple and profound manner, using various examples of familiar things. In one afternoon, Yagus gained a lot. Any more questions, Argus? Voldemort was also extremely satisfied with this smart and studious disciple. When he tells his story, he can often draw inferences from one instance and save him a lot of time. It's gone for now. Thank you for your advice, teacher. Yagus bowed respectfully. There is some sincerity in this sentence of teacher. Do you still remember what I told you to tell you last time? There is a three-headed dog hidden in the restricted area on the third floor. It seems to be guarding something. I don't know what it is specifically yet. Three-headed dog. Voldemort murmured softly, seeming to be deep in thought. After a while, I asked again. What about Harry Potter? What part of his information do you want to know? All. Voldemort is still in the remnant stage, and Quirrell's health is getting worse. Most of the time, he is unwilling to use magic power, and his perception of the outside world and intelligence collection are extremely limited. Even if I had doubts about Harry after the last defense against the dark arts class, I could only collect some basic information. Then I'll start before he enters school. Yagus didn't show any impatience and answered calmly. Harry had been living in his aunt's house before entering school. He was abused. He had never been exposed to magical knowledge, and he didn't even know the identity of his parents. In addition to some key information in the future plot, such as Harry being Voldemort's Horcrux, living in his aunt's house because of his mother's spell, etc. Yagus told other information about Harry's character and experience one by one. After listening to this, Voldemort fell into thinking again. After a few minutes, look up. Well done, this is your reward. With a flick of the wand, a new notebook flew into Yagus' arms together with the one that Yagus had read. Continue to collect information about Harry Potter. There will be some follow-up actions that require your cooperation. I will contact you in advance then. Yes, teacher. Exit Quirrell's office. The sky has completely darkened. As expected of Britain, it's already dark after 4 o'clock. Go back and clean up. Aunt Vita should be arriving in Hogsmeade soon. Yagus returned to the dormitory and took out the Marauder's map, an exploration radar. Dodging several classmates and professors, he followed an underground tunnel all the way to Hogsmeade Village. Just when he arrived here, Yagus discovered a problem. Hogsmeade is so big. He didn't agree on a specific location with Vita, so he didn't know where to find her for a while. After looking around for a long time, Yagus walked toward the place nearby where the crowd seemed to be the densest. It's just that, his judgment seemed to be wrong. I thought I was at the Three Broomsticks bar. As a result, there was a huge pig's head hanging at the door. Yagus almost couldn't hold back his curse words. Gone. Why did you come to this ghost place? Blame it on the crazy British weather. It's only after 4 o'clock, why are you doing it so fast? I can't even see the store clearly. As soon as he entered, he attracted the attention of countless wizards from all walks of life. Many people looked at Yagus as if they were prey. There was a hint of killing intent in his eyes from time to time. Obviously treating him as a piece of fat. Look at the shirt inside his wizard's robe. It's a high-end product, costing at least dozens of gold galleons. It's probably a chick from some pure-blood family, looking for excitement. Hee hee. Looking at his outfit, you can tell that if he sells it to a pure-blood family, he will definitely get a huge sum of money. There are a large number of desperados from the wizarding world here, and they are all engaged in the business of licking blood. When I saw a big deal, I couldn't hold it back. Yagus secretly held the wand from his sleeve, always on guard against sneak attacks from around him. At this moment, the old man with a gray beard who had been wiping the wine glasses at the bar slammed the table hard. Everyone, please be quiet. Don't forget my rules here. With one sentence, the whole place fell silent instantly. The ones who shouted the loudest just now had fear in their eyes. I think of it, the owner of the Pig's Head pub seems to be Dumbledore's brother. A hidden boss. No wonder people here are so afraid of him. I guess I already knew that the boss here is not easy to mess with. Just when Yagus breathed a sigh of relief, thinking that they would not dare to take action, the next words of the old man with a gray beard made him instantly dumbfounded. It's okay to fight, but if you break something, you'll be compensated 10 times as much. Argos almost withdrew his wand. The next second, a rapid curse struck Yagus. Immediately afterwards, there is a series of output. Collapse. Expelliarmus. All petrified. There are no evil spells, just some lethal white magic. As Jin Gallon in their eyes, how could these wizards from all religions be willing to really hurt him? They also hope to sell Yagus at a good price. Armor protection. While dodging, Yagus released protective magic on himself. Blocked several spells in one breath. The flames are blazing. The blazing flames ignited all the surrounding wooden tables and chairs. The wizards who were extremely arrogant just now were stunned. As expected of a child from a wealthy family. We spent a long time casting magic but didn't dare to break one. Did you burn it all in one breath? As everyone knows, Yagus captures their mentality. Do you still have to worry about the head and tail in a life and death fight? Isn't that seeking death? Saving your life is the first priority. While they were stunned, Yagus cast out several more magic spells. Shattered to pieces. Expelliarmus. Split into pieces. Several figures fell to the ground in response, and others also looked shocked. It seemed unimaginable that a new student would have such strength. In their minds, their biggest opponents should be their peers. But now it seems that, let alone colleagues, if you continue to hesitate, whether you can win the other party is a question. Are you telling me that this is a new student at Hogwarts? Whoever opens his mouth will be shattered into pieces. You ask me, who should I ask? Let's join forces. If we drag this out any longer, if a professor from Hogwarts is dragged in, we'll all have to go around without food. The remaining 3 people looked at each other and released magic spells on different parts of Yagis's body. All kinds of rays of light rushed towards Yagis. When Yagis raised his wand, the surrounding debris of tables and chairs flew up, blocking the flight path of the spell. A salvo of 10,000 bullets. The birds flock. Taking advantage of the empty spells of several people, Yagis took action decisively and defeated the 2 of them again. In the end, the remaining people panicked and looked at Yagis with murderous intent. As soon as he gritted his teeth, a green light flashed above the wand. Suddenly, the old man with a gray beard at the bar took action. The thick red beam knocked the man to the ground hard. Old goat, don't you want to get involved? The old man with gray beard glanced at him lightly. If you can afford to pay for my bar, I will never interfere. In one sentence, the other party's words were completely blocked. Yagis did not miss this opportunity, and threw it over in a feint manner, killing the last person. Aberforth was calm on the surface, but in fact he was in a turmoil deep inside. As the younger brother of Albus Dumbledore, he can be said to be the one who knows Dumbledore's talent and growth best. Even Dumbledore, at this age, is far from capable of killing several adult wizards by himself. Whether it's the magic he masters or his combat ability, compared to the little wizard in front of him, he's not even inferior at all. Yagis looked calm after taking care of a few people. Sit quietly at the bar. A butterbeer. Aberforth glanced at him and took a glass of yellow liquid from the stained barrel. 2 silver sickles. Yagis threw it on the table, picked up the butterbeer and drank it slowly. Although butterbeer is called beer, it is actually just a ginger drink. No alcohol content whatsoever. It tastes warm to the body, which is very suitable for the UK in autumn and winter. New student at Hogwarts. Aberforth spoke suddenly. Yagis didn't pay attention and nodded casually. Newborn calves are not afraid of tigers. Seeing that you are quite happy to take action, I will give you a piece of advice. This group of people has called someone and they will be here soon. It's best to ask your family or professor to pick you up. Otherwise. A cold female voice came from outside the door. What if I don't have money to compensate you? Mr. Dumbledore. The figure of Vita Rosier emerged from the door and walked towards Aberforth with elegant steps. Holding a magic wand in his hand, his expression is particularly cold. The moment he saw Vita, Aberforth's eyes turned cold. Yagis suddenly thought of something. It seems. Aberforth's sister died because of the fight between Dumbledore and Grindelwald. Isn't this old man going to hold grudges against all the saints? He wanted to find evidence to prove that all this was just conjecture. But the 2 of them almost condensed their actual murderous intent and told him clearly. No. His eyes kept dancing around the 2 of them. As Grindelwald's #1 follower, Vita Rosier goes without saying much. After decades of magic accumulation, his strength has reached a new level. Aberforth is Dumbledore's younger brother. In the original novel, he is the one who dares to challenge Voldemort. If these 2 fight, they will tear down the entire village of Hogsmeade. Aberforth walked out of the bar, clenching the wand in his hand with his withered palm. Vita Rosier. I was just thinking about whose boy has such strength at such a young age. Did not expect. There are many things you didn't expect. Vita did not give in, staring at Aberforth with a pair of green eyes. Aunt Vita, calm down. Calm down. After Yagis's persuasion, Vita finally did not fight Aberforth because he was worried about hurting Yagis. The 2 returned to the manor they had purchased from Malfoy. Argus, how is life at Hogwarts? Dumbledore didn't give you any trouble, did he? Vita knew that Yagis was coming back and prepared some food that he liked to eat in advance. No, the teachers there are pretty good. I think so. I remember when you were in Austria, you didn't have the ability to deal with 7 or 8 adult wizards at once. Feeling the coldness in Vita's words, Yagis hurriedly explained. You can't blame me, Aunt Vita. I don't know where you were waiting for me in Hogsmeade Village. I can only look for places one by one. Who knew I would be targeted as soon as I entered? So, you still blame me? Vita Rosier's tone became more and more dangerous. Yagis knew very well that there was no reason to talk to women. Especially angry women. The best way to deal with this situation is to admit your mistake. I was wrong, Aunt Vita. I will never do such a dangerous thing next time. Hearing Yagis's assurance, Vita nodded with satisfaction. I'm not blaming you, it's just that you are too young and lack combat experience. The fate of the whole saint hangs on you alone. What do you want us to do if something happens to you? I understand, Aunt Vita. Yagis nodded obediently. It's not about knowing, it's about doing it. The meal was finished with old motherly nagging from Vita. After the meal, Abernethy arrived, and the three finally entered the formal conversation. Argos, according to what you said, all our shops in Diagon Alley will hand over a penny of their profits to the British Ministry of Magic in exchange for their blessing. Only. It's just that you can't understand why you want to do this, can you, Uncle Abernethy? Yagis didn't mind the other party's doubts. Explain to the other party verbally. We have just entered the UK, and neither our background nor our connections are enough to compare with the deep-rooted pure-blood families. Opening a store in Diagon Alley is tantamount to snatching food from a tiger's mouth. At this time, having a protective umbrella becomes extremely important. Abernethy was still confused, but with the current strength of the Saints, it is not difficult to save a few shops, right? There is an old saying in the ancient East, it takes 1,000 days to commit a thief, but it takes 1,000 days to guard against a thief. We can't send a large number of manpower to guard the store all the time. At this time, the role of the Ministry of Magic appears. With this profit opening, even if the pure blood family wants to take action, they have to ask the Ministry of Magic if they agree. These pure blood families will not only use superficial means. Weta has experienced too many storms and waves, and he can see the loopholes at a glance. The Ministry of Magic can block threats on the surface, but if the other party is trying to play dirty tricks, you can't let the Ministry of Magic take action for you anymore, right? The British Ministry of Magic is not run by a saint. Don't worry about this, I've already prepared it. Yagis was actually a little worried. He was very aware of Vita's attitude towards Dumbledore, and was afraid that he would be furious if he knew about it. I had no choice but to hide it first, and then slowly reveal it to her when I had the opportunity in the future. He took out the boxes stacked with magical animal materials and placed them in front of Vita like a treasure. Aunt Vita, I have a surprise for you today. Vita didn't care and put it on the table casually. You're already the biggest surprise to me if you don't get into trouble. I'm telling you, don't try to fool me like a little girl, I won't be fooled. In her opinion, Yagis stayed in school every day and came into contact with little wizards who had no success. Even if you hook up with a professor, you won't be able to convince him in a day or two. You'll know when you open it and take a look. Yagis's smile made Vita a little confused. She opened the box hesitantly, but her eyes widened at the contents inside. A dazzling array of magical animal materials. Most things have a price but no market value in the market. Abernethy exclaimed. These are. I got it at Hogwarts. It's reasonable and legal. You don't have to worry about anything. Abernethy was absolutely thrilled. These materials are scarce resources. Especially when the Saints have not yet found a stable supply of goods, it directly solves their urgent needs. Marvelous. With these materials, we can stock up on a large amount of goods in advance. When we open the store, let's give the British pure blood families a close price war. Abernethy was not the only one who was excited. Even Vita, who had seen the world, couldn't help but be moved when he saw so much material. He looked at Yagis with relief. When she first met Yagis, he was still a little kid with a bigger fart. In the blink of an eye, he has become the mainstay of the Saints. But the surprise that Yagis brought to the two of them was not over yet. The next words made the two of them truly feel that they had been abandoned by the times. The ones just now are just the first batch. There will be more in the future, but the quantity may not be that big. The first batch. Does Hogwarts have such a stable supply? Abernethy was confused. He searched for a stable supply for a long time, but he didn't even see a shadow. You can find so many materials just by walking around the school. I'm afraid you are not Merlin's biological son. Yagis explained with a Versailles expression, the warden of the Forbidden Forest at Hogwarts. I have a pretty good relationship with him. A lot of magical animal materials are dropped every day in the Forbidden Forest. In the past, the prices in his pure blood family's shop have always been low. I told him that I could buy them all at market price, and he sold them to me. You mean, these materials are just market prices? At this moment, even Vita was stunned. She was born in the Rosier family, and had worked in the wizarding world for decades, and had read countless materials. You can tell at a glance that these materials are of extraordinary quality and are of the highest quality. Even twice the market price is not an exaggeration. Yagus actually took it all away at the market price. Still a long-term monopoly. The subsequent materials will also be of this quality. No. Abernathy breathed a sigh of relief at Yagus's words. That would be right, if only it were of such high quality every time. How do you let others live? But his next words made Abernathy confused. These are all stocks that my friend has kept for a long time, and they are maintained somewhat casually. The quality of subsequent ones should be better than this. Abernathy and Vita looked at each other, looking at Yagus with complicated eyes. Yagus was confused. What's wrong? I'm telling the truth. The next day, Diagon Alley. Compared with the past, Diagon Alley is particularly lively today. Dozens of stores held opening ceremonies simultaneously. The grand venue attracted a large number of wizards to stop and watch. What is surprising is that there are aurors stationed at the ceremony. Backstage at the ceremony, Yagus blew the hot tea in his hand, and Vita Rosier beside him put away the teapot. Thank you, Mr. Malfoy. Without your help, these stores in Diagon Alley would not be so easy to obtain. You are too foreign, Mr. Grindelwald. We are partners, so we should naturally help each other. Lucius kept wiping the sweat from his forehead and fidgeting next to Argus. He had seen the methods of the young man in front of him countless times before Hogwarts started school. Exquisite handling, decisive decision-making, and thoughtful thinking. Even he, the leader of the 28 sacred clans, is ashamed. If it were just these, it would be fine. But the person standing next to you pouring tea is the Black Rose of France, Vita Rosier. A figure who far surpasses him in terms of age and status. People are serving tea standing up, how dare you sit down? I'm afraid I don't know how to write the word, death. Mr. Malfoy, the opening ceremony is about to officially begin. Let's go and see it together. Argus took a sip of the hot tea in his hand, saw Lucius's anxiety, and opened his mouth to come to the rescue. Lucius stood up quickly and followed Argus. Seeing Vita's figure, he paused unconsciously and fell behind again. At the ceremony, the host is working hard to promote various products. His humorous language combined with his funny actions made the wizard's onlookers giggle. Mr. Grindelwald, at today's opening ceremony, there should be many important members of the pure blood family coming. If you don't mind, I can introduce you to him. The Malfoy family still has some dignity in this regard. When this topic was mentioned, Lucius finally gained some confidence. The Malfoy family is a coward. No, the reputation of being a courtesan is not something that can be built on. Thank you, Mr. Malfoy. Argus smiled and did not refuse. A few people had just walked a few steps when they heard someone saying hello inside. Yagos, this way. Lucius was stunned for a moment. Yagus smiled and stepped forward to respond. Mr. Carlo, long time no see. Carlo walked a few steps quickly and came to Yagus. You are the protagonist of today's ceremony, and you came too late. Who is this? Yagus introduced the two of them. This is one of the 28 sacred clans, the patriarch of the Malfoy family, Mr. Lucius Malfoy. Turning back, he looked at Lucius. This is Mr. Ian Carlo of the Carlo family. He is also a member of the 28 Holy Clan, but he doesn't usually go out and walk around. Ian Carlo pretended to be dissatisfied. What do you mean you can't walk around? I'm studying magical animals, okay. Hello, Mr. Malfoy, nice to meet you. Lucius said blankly. Very, nice to see you. Soon, two more people came. Mr. Grindelwald, I have been looking for you for a long time. A burly bearded man came over and patted Yagus on the shoulder. Another thin man was also very happy. Mr. Grindelwald, you are finally here. We haven't finished talking about the development of a new model of broomsticks last time. When will we continue to talk? Lucius was confused. These two are Mr. Bayless and Mr. Dave, researchers on the Nimbus Company's broomstick. The latest issue of Nimbus 2000 was the idea proposed by them. Before Yagus could finish speaking, several phantom figures appeared. Mr. Grindelwald, are we not late? It seems like there isn't, haha. Ross will be here soon. He has wanted to see you for a long time. A large group of figures in luxurious clothes cheered and entered the ceremony. Yagus still had a polite smile on his face. Professor Travers, your body is still so strong. Travers said with a straight face, what are you talking about? Durmstrang is so close to you, why do you have to come to England to go to Hogwarts? Yagus smiled helplessly. I will explain this to you later. No, you must give me an answer today. Otherwise, I will go to Dumbledore myself and ask. Travers played tough. Yagus had to deal with it first. When the ceremony is over, I will definitely satisfy you. Let me introduce you to Mr. Malfoy. This is Professor Travers of Durmstrang. Lucius exclaimed. Professor Travers. Your black magic book, The Origin of Black Magic, is my enlightenment work on black magic. I didn't expect to see you here today. Travers nodded. Boy of the Malfoy family, I have heard that you have managed the Malfoy family well over the years without losing your face. Just as this group of people left, the next group of people came over again. There was no time to even take a breath. Lucius was so tired that he almost vomited blood. Tell me, you have only been in the UK for 2 months. How come there are more people than I know? Which one of us is the social butterfly? He originally had some heirs and wanted to introduce some British families to Yagus. That's good, Yagus introduced a bunch of people to him. Yagus chuckled inwardly. Do you really think I dare to come to the UK without any preparation? Those old ghosts in the Saints may not have much strength left, but they know more people than each one. The people they introduced to Yagus may not be as powerful as pure blood families, but they are all leaders in various industries. As the saying goes, what is the most important thing in the 21st century? Talent. These people are the pinnacle of talent. Make good friends and it will definitely come in handy in the future. Lucius wiped the sweat from his forehead. Mr. Grindelwald, are your friends almost here? Or we can. Wait a moment, there are still a few that haven't arrived yet. More. Lucius's feet were weak and he almost lost his balance. Yagus comforted him with words. There are only a few left and they should be here soon. You should be familiar with these guys, no need for me to introduce them. Lucius relaxed a little. It's easy to talk about my acquaintances. It's not like I didn't know anyone just now. When acquaintances meet, they can at least exchange a few words. He just breathed a sigh of relief when he saw a dark figure suddenly appear in the distance. Coming towards them. Before I saw anyone, I heard a familiar voice. Mr. Grindelwald, we finally meet. Ha ha ha. My Aurors brought you trouble last time, please don't worry about it. This voice is. Lucius's pupils shrank sharply. Yagus smiled faintly and stepped forward to greet him. You're joking. Minister Fudge. Cornelius Fudge, British Minister for Magic, came to power in 1990. Extremely passionate about power. It's a pity that there is an emperor above him, who is always suppressed by Dumbledore. Coupled with the factional divisions within the British Ministry of Magic, he, the Minister of Magic, encountered obstacles everywhere. It's an honor to meet you, Minister Fudge. Yagus took the initiative to extend his hand to Fudge and invited him into the ceremony. Fudge thought highly of the new leader of the Saints who settled in England. The manpower and power in the opponent's hands are definitely not comparable to those of several pure-blood families. If you can get their support, the power in your hands will be greatly enhanced. By then, he can completely reshuffle the Ministry of Magic and completely get rid of the reputation of the puppet minister. Regarding the Aurors, I have already reprimanded Scrimgeour. Don't worry, the British Ministry of Magic treats all wizards equally. Seeing the blonde man beside him, he turned his head in surprise. Mr. Malfoy, you are here too. It's been a long time no see. Long time no see, Minister Fudge. Lucius' mentality quickly adjusted. As the patriarch of the Malfoy family, with the support of a large number of pure-blood families behind him, he has no fear of Fudge. The surprise when I first met the other party was mainly because the other party actually attended the opening ceremony in person. The meaning of this is enough to make people think deeply. By the way, Mr. Grindelwald, let me introduce you. This is Amelia Bones, Director of the Division of Legal Enforcement. A gray-haired woman wearing a monocle nodded to Yagus. This is Dolores Umbridge, head of the Office for the Abuse of Magic. Next to Fudge, a fat lady wearing a pink formal suit and a sweet smile smiled, bowed, and moved closer to Yagus. Hello Mr. Grindelwald. Thank you very much for your support of the British Ministry of Magic. Idiot. As soon as she opened her mouth, Yagus frowned. Originally, he was not interested in the pink toad in the original work. He thought that being able to sit in the position of director would have a certain IQ. Unexpectedly, there was a sense of stupidity as soon as he opened his mouth. Your boss is still here and he hasn't even thanked you. Is it your turn to speak? What are you? Sure enough, Fudge's face immediately darkened. Umbridge, it's not your turn to interrupt here. Umbridge panicked, but didn't know where she was wrong. Mr. Minister, if you say one more word, you will go back. Fudge turned to look at Yagus and actually performed a face change. Mr. Grindelwald, your assistance is a real help to the British Ministry of Magic. On behalf of the British Ministry of Magic, I would like to express my gratitude to you. Since I chose the UK, I should contribute my own strength to the British magical community. These are what I should do. Yagus answered very hypocritically. If possible, who would be willing to give away their own money to others for free? He turned around and introduced the person next to him to Fudge. Mr. Malfoy, you know him. This is Ms. Vita Rosier. I wonder if you have heard of her. Vita Rosier. Fudge's eyes when he looked at Vita changed immediately. Previously, he just thought that Vita was extraordinary and probably came from an ancient big family. But I never thought that it was the legendary French Black Rose. Grindelwald's #1 follower. #2 of the Saints. I'm so sorry, Ms. Rosier, please forgive me for not recognizing you for a moment. Vita nodded and did not answer his words. Seeing that the atmosphere was a bit awkward, Lucius opened his mouth to break the deadlock. The ceremony is about to begin. Minister Fudge, please come in. Fudge smiled and said hello. Just as he was about to go to the ceremony with Yagus, his steps stopped. An embarrassing scene occurs. Logically speaking, as the Minister of Magic and the most distinguished guest at this ceremony, Fudge should be walking in the front alongside Argus. But don't forget who is following Yagus. Vita Rosier. When the Saints were at their peak, let alone the Minister of Magic, even the International Federation of Wizards was just a tool in their hands. Fudge is not a bold person, and he pays special attention to the order of dignity and inferiority. I scratched my head anxiously for a moment. Yagus saw Fudge's embarrassment and glanced at Vita. Vita nodded and retreated from the other side. Minister Fudge, the British wizarding community is in such a stable situation today, all thanks to you. If you don't go first, I'm afraid no one will dare to take a step. Lucius also helped. Yes, Minister Fudge, please. I would like to ask you to take more care of the future business of our families and Mr. Grindelwald. Hearing these words, Fudge grinned. The eyes looking at Yagus became more and more satisfied. This is natural. If you encounter any trouble in the future, as long as it is within the scope of my duties, you can come to me. Mr. Malfoy and I will definitely not be polite. With you in charge of the British Ministry of Magic, the British wizarding world will surely prosper in the future. We have your full support. After getting the answer he wanted, Fudge's smile almost reached behind his ears. I accompanied Yagus all the way to the ceremony, for fear that others would not know their relationship. Just when Yagus was about to walk onto the ceremony stage with Fudge, a familiar and extremely powerful magic wave attracted his attention. Turning his head, a snow-white figure flashed past. Sorry, Minister Fudge, I have something to do and I have to excuse you first. Yagus looked apologetic, but his eyes were fixed on the direction where the white figure disappeared. Fudge didn't care about this. It's okay, Mr. Grindelwald, you go and do your work first, as long as Mr. Malfoy is with me. Yagus nodded and quickly chased the figure just now. Walking to a secluded room, there were two people standing there. Vita Rosier looked cold and pointed her wand directly at Dumbledore. Dumbledore was very calm, and his strong strength gave him unparalleled confidence. Aunt Vita, please go out first and let me talk to him. Vita looked at Yagis, did not refute, and walked out of the room silently. Before leaving, he glanced hard at Dumbledore. Dumbledore consciously found a place to sit down. Mr. Grindelwald, if I remember correctly, you should be at school at this time. So, the principal is here to take me back. Dumbledore smiled. If I had a little more honey, I might forget about it. Don't forget our agreement. Today is the opening ceremony. I don't want anything to go wrong. Yagis didn't want to be conceited and went directly to the topic. He took out a piece of parchment and placed it in front of Dumbledore. These are the shops I want to open. You are responsible for solving the pure blood families behind them. Dumbledore didn't pay much attention at first, but after looking at the parchment, he couldn't take his eyes away. He raised his head and looked at Yagis as if he was asking. So many stores. Are you a human being? Dumbledore thought that Argos would open many stores, but in his mind, based on the current assets of the saints and the resources that could be mobilized at hand, at most there are 5 or 6 stores. After all, the stores in Diagon Alley are very expensive, and the supply of goods needed for store operations cannot be found in a short time. But there must be at least 20 or 30 houses in this densely packed area in front of me, right? If you look carefully, there are also stores like potions and magical animal materials that are almost monopolized by pure blood families. This is like digging the ancestral grave of a pure blood family. You don't want me to help you solve future problems, you are forcing them to risk their lives with me. Dumbledore looked at Argus with complicated eyes. Even with his strength and reputation, he couldn't help but feel a headache when he saw these shops. It is true that he is the strongest wizard at present, but that does not mean that these pure blood families will let him control them. Especially when it touches on their most fundamental interests. Seeing Dumbledore's face turn blue and white, the smile on Argus's face became even brighter. Principal, don't you want to regret it? You are the greatest white wizard of this century. You can't lie to me, a kid who just entered school. Dumbledore opened his mouth, as if he wanted to say something, but hesitated several times and did not speak. With a long sigh, he picked up the parchment and disappeared in front of Yagis. At the ceremony, Arthur Weasley and Lady Molly were showing around with their little daughter Ginny. So many stores opened at the same time, and there were many big names. I really don't know who would be so generous. Arthur looked at the bustling crowd and the dazzling array of merchandise around him, and couldn't help but sigh. Look, that's Amelia Bones, Director of the Division of Legal Enforcement. Next to me is the head of the UK region of Nimbus. And that Fudge is here too. Mrs. Molly looked a little dissatisfied. Okay Arthur, finally come out. Don't talk about these spoiling things, let's go over there and look at the clothes. Ginny will be a big girl next year and will go to Hogwarts. I need to prepare some beautiful new clothes for her. As he spoke, he led Ginny towards the clothing store. Arthur followed angrily. The highest-ranking member of the Weasley family is Mrs. Molly, who holds all the power. Even he did not dare to disobey Mrs. Molly's instructions. Several people came to the clothing store and saw a sea of people in front of them. Many women looked at the exquisite costumes in front of them in surprise. Ginny couldn't help but exclaimed, and stretched out her little hand to touch the clothes next to her. Mom, the clothes here are so beautiful. The material feels very comfortable too. A young witch on the side heard Ginny's words and came close to a few people. Oh, sweetheart, you have such a discerning eye. This robe is the best one we sell in our store. It not only looks good, but it also has insulation and stretchable functions. The perfect one for a pretty girl like you. Ginny's eyes sparkled. After all, she is just a 10-year-old girl. She has a natural love and yearning for beautiful clothes. Are you the manager of this store? Did you design these clothes? Although I really want to say yes, honey, I'm sorry, I'm just a shopping guide in this store. Besides me, there are many people like me here. The young witch shook her head. But you are right about one thing. These clothes were designed by our boss himself. Merlin's beard is simply a genius idea. I really want to meet him if I have the chance. You haven't even met the boss. Arthur interrupted in surprise. Not just me, no one here seems to have seen it, but today is the opening ceremony, so he will definitely come. Do you like it, honey? If so, let's buy one. Mrs. Molly saw Ginny's desire and asked in her ear. Ginny hesitated and shook her head. Children from poor families should become masters early, and the same applies to the wizarding world. She really liked this dress, but she could also see that it was worth a lot of money. Based on the financial situation of the Weasley family, if you buy this dress, you will probably be in trouble for a while. Please help me wrap this dress, thank you. A gentle male voice sounded from behind, and Ginny turned her head suddenly and met Argus's sky-blue eyes. Mr. Grindelwald, no, this will cost you too much. Arthur reacted the fastest and stopped Yagus immediately. Yagus smiled and responded, just call me Yagus. George and Fred were very close to me at school, and Percy helped me a lot and lent me his notes. Ginny is their sister, and naturally she is also my sister. It's just a piece of clothing, not an expensive gift. Yagus waved his hand and motioned the young witch to wrap up the clothes. Arthur wanted to say something else, but looking at his daughter's happy expression, everything turned into a sigh. Mrs. Molly didn't say anything, but she secretly decided to prepare more balls of yarn when she went back and knit some sweaters for Yagus before Christmas in return. Ginny, did you forget to say something? Arthur reminded gently. Ginny's pretty face turned red, she glanced at Argus and lowered her head shyly. Thank you, Yagus. Nothing. Argus reached out his hand to touch Ginny's head, and suddenly realized that he seemed to be only 1 year older than her. This kind of action is a little too intimate. The palm of his hand froze in midair for a moment. Unexpectedly, Ginny took the initiative to step forward, stood up on tiptoes, and rubbed Argus's hand. Then he got into Mrs. Molly's arms, not daring to look up again. Several people walked out of the clothing store, saw that the ceremony had begun, and walked towards the ceremony stage. With the topic provided by Yagus, the four of them chatted happily. By the way, Argus, I remember that the new students at Hogwarts can't leave school except for holidays, right? Who are you? Arthur asked the question he'd always wanted to ask. Mrs. Molly also realized this and looked at Yagus with questioning eyes. I have something to do today, so I asked Principal Dumbledore for leave in advance. Yagus lied. Mrs. Molly and the others did not doubt it. In their minds, Yagus is a good boy. He is excellent in studies, gentle and polite, and has the aristocratic temperament of pure blood, but without their arrogance. Sometimes Mrs. Molly even thought that if she had another child, it would be great if she could raise her like Yagus. On the ceremony stage, as Fudge and other senior officials from the Ministry of Magic took the stage, the emotions in the venue gradually reached their peak. The owner of the shop has not appeared for a long time, making everyone curious. This shop owner is really mysterious. He hasn't appeared yet. I wonder what kind of big shot he would be. Arthur stared at Fudge on the high platform. Not necessarily, maybe I'm chatting with my friends. Arthur smiled slightly, thinking it was a child's joke and didn't care. But the next second, the host's words on the stage made him unable to laugh anymore. Thank you for coming. Next, please give me a warm round of applause and invite our shop owner, Mr. Argus Grindelwald, to appear. Arthur was stunned. The big shot that I had been guessing for a long time was standing next to me. In his mind, Argus is only as old as his own son. I might ask myself to help take care of him in the future, but in the blink of an eye, I would be standing side by side with my immediate boss. Even he might not be able to talk to the dignitaries around him. This made it hard for him to believe his eyes for a moment. Ginny's eyes turned into hearts. As early as the first time she met Yagus, she was attracted to this gentle and dignified young man. After receiving the gift from the other party, the attraction turned into a girl's admiration. He became famous as a young man, with extraordinary appearance and refined temperament. Added together, the damage to a pregnant girl is simply too great. There was nothing special about Mrs. Molly, she was just urging. My dear, hurry up and don't keep others waiting. Okay, Mrs. Molly. Yagus looked calm and could not see the slightest bit of anxiety. With elegant and calm steps, he walked onto the ceremony stage and came to Fudge's side. Mr. Grindelwald, please look over here. The reporter from the Daily Prophet had already made arrangements. Seeing Yagus, Fudge and others side by side, they naturally would not miss this opportunity. Fudge smiled brightly and gently hugged Yagus's shoulders, showing great intimacy. Naturally, Yagus would not refuse this opportunity to raise the banner. Isn't that why I gave so much money to the British Ministry of Magic? Many pure-blood family members around saw this scene and couldn't help but make a secret decision. You need to let your children have more contact with Yagas. They had met Yagas several times at some parties before, but due to the age gap between the two parties, they viewed each other more as a junior. Even though he knew that he was very popular among the younger generation, he never had other thoughts. But now it seems that the other party's skills and vision have long surpassed those of his peers. Naturally, a shrewd pureblood would not let go of such a genius who could see the future at a glance. Thank you for coming. After taking photos with Fudge and other senior executives, Yagas bowed slightly and saluted everyone. His elegant behavior attracted admiration from countless people. To thank you for taking the time out of your busy schedule to attend our opening ceremony, all products in the Saints store will be on sale at a discount today. Buy one item for 10% off, 2 items for 20% off, and 3 items for 30% off. In addition, there is also an order sharing activity where you can invite any 3 people and get a discount based on the total number of items purchased by the 3 people. The more you buy, the greater the discount. One sentence made the crowd excited again. Countless people flocked to various stores of the Saints group. The corners of Yagas' lips curled up. Can't bear it anymore. If I play a wizard version of Shishi or Double 11 in the future, won't you go crazy? These sales methods were used by many people in previous lives, but in this time period, they are indeed very novel. This is especially true for the backward wizarding world. Fudge laughed so hard that he could hardly keep his eyes open. No matter how much they sell, these stores will benefit from the British Ministry of Magic. Of course he hopes to sell as many as possible. Unlike others, Lucius's eyebrows wrinkled unconsciously. While others were busy socializing, he came to Yagas and asked softly. Mr. Grindelwald, I admire your promotional methods. It's just about our supply reserves, right? Yagas's expression was calm. Don't worry, Mr. Malfoy, I've already prepared it. PLZ, follow me. The two walked through several long and narrow tunnels and came to an underground warehouse. With the waving of Argus's wand, all the magical animal materials previously acquired from Hagrid were presented in front of Lucius. Lucius looked straight. He rubbed his eyes vigorously to make sure he wasn't hallucinating. Mr. Grindelwald, all these materials are. As you can imagine, they are all stored in our store. Incredible, incredible. Lucius reached out and touched the horn of the unicorn at hand. The Malfoy family's thousands of years of collections are indeed much more than this, but the amount of collections and the amount of sales are completely two different concepts. If he were asked to sell magical animal materials in large quantities like Yagas, he would never dare. Mr. Grindelwald, I know this question is a bit presumptuous, but I want to know whether these materials are the Saints' reserves, or original from the UK, of course. Yagas smiled slightly. Speaking of which, I would also like to thank the British pure-blood families. They personally delivered these supplies to me. Send it to you personally. Lucius was puzzled. Mr. Malfoy, don't you think these materials look familiar? You may not have come into contact with these magical animals. Have I been in contact with him? Lucius was confused now. The Malfoy family has always been a real estate speculator. When did they get into the business of magical animal materials? Seeing his expression, Yagas no longer pretended. Hogwarts Forbidden Forest. These materials all come from the Hogwarts Forbidden Forest. Hogwarts. Lucius was shocked. As the school director of Hogwarts, he knows the details of Hogwarts very well. How many people's eyes are fixed on this? Unexpectedly, Yagas got it. But he was a little confused. But what does this have to do with pureblood families? Hagrid, the warden of the Forbidden Forest at Hogwarts, you should know, is the half-blood giant. The smile in Yagas's eyes grew wider. He wanted to find the purebloods in Diagon Alley to sell some magical creature materials. But people there look down on him at all, and the price is so high that they can't bear to look at it. I only used the market price to collect all the materials he had. And we have reached a long-term cooperation. As long as he picks up the materials from the Forbidden Forest, I will accept them all. Lucius was completely dumbfounded. He never thought that a Forbidden Forest guard could bring such huge profits. In addition to regretting it, I secretly scolded those purebloods for their short-sightedness. There are so many gold galleons in front of you that you can't even catch them. Cheap Yagas for free. As long as they can show some sincerity, there will be nothing to do with Yagas now. He could tell just by taking a cursory glance at the goods here. At least you can earn tens of thousands of gold galleons. Argus quietly admired Lucius's expression. I'm not worried that he will attack secretly. Hagrid is stubborn and has a natural dislike for pure bloods, so he will never cooperate with them. As for banning Hagrid from taking things from the Forbidden Forest. Please, do you have to take care of what others pick up from the ground? What a joke. Lucius was silent for a long time, and finally sighed. Mr. Grindelwald, your vision is truly admirable. The Malfoy family will be your most loyal partner. After the whole day's ceremony, Argus returned to Hogwarts. As soon as I entered the school, a system prompt sounded in my brain. Congratulations to the host for establishing a business group in Diagon Alley and obtaining the achievement, the settlement of a business giant. Achievement point reward, 100. Set sail. What I want to do is not as simple as setting sail. When Argus was thinking, he had returned to the Slytherin common room. Yagos, where have you been today? I haven't seen you all day. As soon as they entered the door, Draco came up to ask. Yagas had been busy at the ceremony for a whole day and was exhausted. After a few quick words, he went back to the dormitory to sleep. The next day is Monday. A weekend has passed, and many young wizards have not yet recovered, and the halls of Hogwarts are buzzing with noise. Countless owls flew in from the ceiling, bringing large amounts of newspapers to the little wizards and professors in the hall. Oh my god. Take a look at the Daily Prophet. The cover of this issue looks like Argus. What? Let me see. One sentence can instantly attract the attention of countless people. For these young wizards who have just entered school, it is undoubtedly a strange and shocking thing for their classmates to be published in the most important newspaper in the wizarding world. Oh, Merlin's ballet cross socks. Next to Argus is Fudge, the Minister for Magic. Behind him are the directors of the Legal Enforcement Department, all of them are big shots. The newspaper also said that he opened dozens of shops in Diagon Alley in one go. In the description of the Daily Prophet, Yagas is talented and has a superb temperament. Almost all the good words that can be used are applied to him. With dozens of shops, how many galleons can you make in a day? Don't talk about how much you earn. Just dozens of stores are not something ordinary people can afford, not even the 28 sacred tribes. There is a big shot among our classmates. There were constant exclamations from the crowd. But Yagas, who was the protagonist of the incident, behaved very calmly and had no intention of showing off. Ron, who was sitting at the Gryffindor table, was almost mad with jealousy. The Minister of Magic, Fudge, or other characters in the photo are existences that even his father cannot match. This scene only appeared in his dreams. But now, it has really happened to the person I hate the most. How could he accept this? Harry noticed that his friend seemed to be in a bad mood and looked at Argus and then at Ron. Don't know how to comfort me. I can only bury my head in the pain and pretend not to see it. Draco's focus was different from others. He curled his lips dissatisfied with Yagas. Yagos, you sneaked out without calling me. No wonder I looked for you all day yesterday and couldn't find you. It turns out you were out playing. It's not like I'm going out to play. I've been exhausted all day. Yagas elegantly cut a piece of steak with the knife and fork in his hand and put it in his mouth. He had no idea that a black shadow had enveloped him behind him. Mr. Grindelwald, I wonder if you should give your dean a reasonable explanation. If I remember correctly, I should not have approved your qualifications to leave school. Snape's sinister voice sounded, and Argus was so shocked that he almost choked to death on the steak in his mouth. I feel like I forgot something. It turns out to be here. Professor, listen to my quibbles. Professor Dumbledore knows that I went to Diagon Alley. He knows, what does it have to do with me? Or do you think your dean is so incapable of using his brain that he can't even judge whether you can ask for leave and go out? Snape's expression became increasingly dangerous. Yagas was very sensible and did not argue further. It seems that Mr. Grindelwald has a lot of free time every day. In this case, from now on, he will come to my office after class every afternoon and work on potions for an hour. Starting today, he said coldly, turned around and left. The surroundings were silent, and some old students looked at Yagus with pity. It took a while before anyone spoke. The Weasley twins looked at each other, walked to the Slytherin table with smiles, and sat down next to him. How's it going? Lord Donor, the things we gave you will be useful. It goes without saying that after we gave it, we dared to sneak out the next day. Hee hee. I remember that after we got it, it took us a long time to find out how to use it. We were already in the second grade when we first sneaked out of Hogwarts. Argus was quite happy to listen to the Weasley twins chatting and found it interesting to talk to them. How are you preparing your new products? My store has been opened and can be put on the shelves at any time. Don't worry, with the support of the financial owner Jin Gallon, it will be done soon. Fred patted his chest and assured. We are at Hogwarts now, not at the burrow. There will be no mother going around searching for our treasures. Yagus thought for a while. I think you can have a good talk with Mrs. Molly. She also thinks about you and does not allow you to play with these prank toys. She is mainly worried that you will not be able to support yourself after graduation. With my shop as a guarantee, you will not only be rich and powerful in the future, but at least you will be able to have food and clothing without worries. The smiles on Fred and George's faces gradually disappeared, and their expressions became serious. Thank you, we will consider it. Yagus smiled and comforted the two of them. Don't be so serious, it's just a suggestion. Everyone has different ideas. Mrs. Molly is a good mother. Communicate well and she will understand you. By the way, I've already read the notes Percy gave me. I'll go to the lounge to get them later. You can hand them over to him for me. Spare us. The Weasley twins raised their hands in a gesture of surrender. That guy Percy will definitely want to teach us a lesson when he sees us, so you should hand it over to him in person. He's quite nice to you. Okay then. Yagus shrugged helplessly. Professor Snape just said that he wants me to go to his office to help process materials. Why do you all look so scared? Is it difficult to handle potions? It's not just difficult. Many of his potions are complicated to process. Fred spoke, and George continued to add. And you have to endure his venomous words and scoldings all the time. I remember some time ago, there was a little girl in Ravenclaw who was just scolded into tears by him. But you are the leader of Slytherin, so he shouldn't be too excessive. Don't worry too much. After finishing the meal, the Weasley twins and Argus went to their respective classrooms. After one day of classes, Argus followed Snape's request and knocked on the door of his room. Come in. Enter Snape's office. The room was dark and filled with all kinds of weird materials. A pungent smell hit his face. Snape was sitting at the desk in his office. In front of him was a cauldron. Something was brewing inside, making a gurgling sound. Seeing Yagus walking in, he didn't motion for him to sit down. Do you know how to deal with the slough of an African tree snake? I know, Professor. Yagus succinctly described the treatment method he learned in the potion book. It's barely bearable, Snape commented. For a professor who has never praised his students, this evaluation is already very good. Yagus ignored the other party's sarcasm and went straight to the medicine cabinet next to him. At the bottom, in the third cabinet. Okay, Professor. Yagus came to the medicine cabinet and found that there was no defensive magic here. The materials were neatly classified and placed in a certain order. Then I thought about it. If this place was really heavily guarded, Hermione wouldn't have been able to steal the polyjuice ingredients in his office in the original book. Taking out the snake slough, Yagus started processing it according to the steps he learned in the book. As soon as they finished too, Snape's mocking voice sounded in his ears. Mr. Grindelwald, please take care of your poor Dean's wallet. Not everyone is like you and can open dozens of shops in Diagon Alley at one go. According to your treatment method, not even half of the entire snake slough can be used. Argus was in a good mood and did not refute, but humbly asked Snape for advice. I'm sorry, Professor, this is my first time handling this material myself. If there are any shortcomings, please give me your advice. Seemingly unaccustomed to Argus' gentle attitude, Snape returned to his seat. Start from the snake's tail, cut a small opening, discard that part, and take out the rest intact. Thank you for your advice, Professor. Argus thought for a few seconds, carefully looked at the snake slough in his hand, and after a while, he started processing it again according to Snape's method. After finishing two, Snape's voice came again. Mr. Grindelwald, I thought only giants would have such heavy fingers. Be gentle. You don't need to use a lot of strength like a giant swinging a club to deal with the snake slew. Okay, Professor. Mr. Grindelwald, compared to dealing with snake slews, I think slugs are more suitable for you, because you are both brainless. These snake slews have been processed and do not need to be washed again. Okay, Professor. Mr. Grindelwald. At the end of the afternoon, Argus couldn't even count how many times he was scolded by Snape. I finally understood why that Ravenclaw lady was scolded and cried. If nothing else, Snape had a knack for insulting people. Not a single sentence was the same all afternoon. However, Yagus was not angry at all. He could tell that although Snape's lecture was unpleasant, he still got to the point. In other words, he is using his own way to give guidance to the students who handle potions. Many of the things in it are not in the books and were summarized by himself. Compared with the standard answers in books, sometimes they are more perfect. Once you can accept his poisonous tongue attributes, he will immediately transform into a top potion master. As time passed, Snape spoke less and less. Yagus is learning faster than he imagined. In just one afternoon, the other party's method of handling snake slews already had the shadow of a professional potion master. Snape's eyes flashed with satisfaction. Many of his suggestions require not only talent, but also patience. And these are exactly what most wizards lack. In the past, he had discovered many talented little wizards, but without exception, most of these people could not handle the boring potion processing procedures. I can't stay for more than a week at most. Either I find an excuse to escape, or I never come back after the confinement is over. But Yagus not only had no complaints all afternoon, he was even able to fulfill all his requirements. This made him feel the love for talents. Time passed little by little, and the light of torches lit up outside the office. The processing of medicinal materials has also come to an end. Yagus stood up and slapped his slightly sore waist. Under Snape's guidance, cleaning up snake slews was not a difficult task, but the process was a bit boring and required careful observation. It just takes a lot of effort. After dressing up the snake, Yagus handed it to Snape, waiting for his evaluation. But the other party's attention was obviously not on him, and he was concentrating on the potion in the crucible in front of him. After a while, Snape saw Argus next to him and glanced briefly. Give your own review. It's still usable. Remember to come early tomorrow. Understood, Professor. Argus was about to leave when his eyes suddenly glanced at the corner of Snape's desk. A lily is in bud. The pure white atmosphere is incompatible with the style of the entire room. Mr. Grindelwald, if you don't want your eyes, I wouldn't mind helping you dig them out. Snape's cold voice sounded. Get out of here. Evidently, Argus's gaze annoyed him. Yagus only found out after being kicked out of the office. The time it takes to process the herbs yourself seems a little too long. It was so long that I had missed dinner and it was time for curfew. But for Yagus, it doesn't matter whether he has a curfew or not. Anyway, Filch won't arrest him. Among the other deans, as long as they don't run into Professor McGonagall, nothing big will happen. Went all the way to the Hogwarts kitchen and enjoyed a delicious dinner. Thinking that Snape had taught him many good things, Argus even asked the house elf to send a copy to Snape. Then I went back to the dormitory and had a good sleep. He slept comfortably, but Dumbledore was different. The dozens of shops that Yagus opened in Diagon Alley are simply cutting the flesh of several pure blood families. In just one day, their turnover dropped by 1/3. This is even before the other party's store is famous. After a while, when British wizards know about these shops, it will be a good thing to keep half of their sales. Taking someone's money is like killing your parents. Being forced to panic, they immediately decided to teach each other a lesson. In just one night, Dumbledore dealt with more than a dozen waves of people who secretly came to cause trouble. The poor centenarian hardly slept all night. It's not like he didn't think about negotiating with the other party, but how could he negotiate such a thing? Everyone, please give me some face. I'm not stupid either. You, Dumbledore, can handle this transaction of tens of thousands of gold galleons with just one word. In desperation, Dumbledore could only decide to hold on to this period of time. As for other matters, when the other party calms down, they will naturally send someone to negotiate. 2 months flew by. Argus lived an extremely fulfilling life. He went to the library after class every day, and when the time was almost up, he went to Snape's office to endure mental attacks. I always go to Quirrell's office on Saturday, and after learning dark magic from Voldemort, I go for a walk in Diagon Alley. After this period of study, Yaggis's strength has improved by leaps and bounds. The max-level talents are combined with the hard work of staying up late. Potions and transfiguration have made rapid progress, and a large number of spells have broken through to level 4 or even level 5. In terms of black magic, especially the 3 unforgivable curses, he is even more proficient in his use. As for the shops in Diagon Alley, with the help of bodyguard Dumbledore and protective umbrella Fudge, in just 2 months, they have accounted for nearly half of the business in Diagon Alley. Several pure-blood families whose businesses were robbed were angry but helpless. On Saturday again, Yaggis came to Quirrell's office as usual. After this period of study, Yaggis could notice that Quirrell's body was getting weaker. From the beginning, I could talk all afternoon and do some magic demonstrations. Until now, I can't even say a few words without gasping for air. But Yaggis didn't care about this. He was not the one who died anyway. I asked for advice as needed, without any sympathy or distress. After the afternoon class, Argus informed Voldemort of the information and intelligence he had collected on Harry during this period as usual. Only this time, Voldemort did not give Argus the notes as usual. Instead, he raised his head and stared at him. The pale, skinny face and deeply sunken eye sockets looked very scary. Yagos, your mission is no longer to collect intelligence. I have some actions that require your cooperation. My cooperation. With a thought in his mind, Yaggis thought of the current time and immediately understood what the other party wanted to do. Steal the magic stone. There are only a few days left before Halloween. If I remember correctly, in the original book, Voldemort will choose to release a troll on Halloween night. Unfortunately, the specifics of what happened were not shown in the movie. We only know that Voldemort did not obtain the Sorcerer's Stone, and Snape seemed to have been bitten on the foot. On the contrary, Harry accidentally killed the troll and became the savior. But there was no Hermione this time, so Harry and Ron probably had no reason to wander around. Wrong. Doesn't this old fool mean to ask me to steal the magic stone? Argus suddenly realized this and looked up at Voldemort. As expected, the other party's next words were to ask Yaggis to go to the 3rd floor. On Halloween night, I'm going to cause some chaos. The attention of all students and professors will be attracted. At that time, you are responsible for going to the 3rd floor and taking out the things hidden inside and giving them to me. Understand? Let me, an 11-year-old wizard, deal with a 3-headed dog. You really think highly of me. Yaggis frowned. Teacher, there is a 3-headed dog guarding there. Do you mean to let me deal with him alone? Are you going to reject me? Voldemort's tone suddenly became dangerous. Teacher, before planning is carried out, problems must be solved in advance. Once there is a riot in Hogwarts, the professors in the school will definitely become extremely vigilant. Every painting and every institution in the castle will be on alert. Let's not talk about the 3-headed dog. Even if I get the items inside, I can't guarantee that it will not be noticed. If Dumbledore finds out, all your plans will be in vain. Argus thought that his words would make Voldemort give up involving him, but unexpectedly, a strange smile appeared on his face. My dear student, I have already thought of the reasons for you. What about a missing friend? In the name of finding his friend, search within Hogwarts Castle. That little Ravenclaw girl who follows you around all day is pretty good. If I remember correctly, it seems to be a mudblood. It's no shame to die. Before you leave, tell your prefects. I'm sure those professors won't make things difficult for you. Voldemort, I will fool you. Can you do something that people can do? Is it easy for me to deceive a few people? You are all fooled by me. Argus' eyes seemed to be cannibalistic, but he knew full well that Voldemort was not negotiating with him at all. It's an order. He must do it. Even if he chooses to refuse, Voldemort will still go ahead with the plan and force him to save Hermione. The worst he could do was to steal it himself while he was fighting with the troll to attract the attention of the professors. Hermione is still in danger. But that wasn't what really made him hesitate. It was he who knew that the third floor was most likely the bait Dumbledore threw to Voldemort. There is no magic stone in it. He knew these things, but Voldemort did not. I couldn't explain it to him either. Moreover, as long as he went to the third floor, yellow mud would fall into his crotch. I can't explain it. Unless someone is watching me closely and can prove that I have never entered that secret room. Voldemort was a little impatient and looked at Argus with a dangerous look. Do you have any other questions? No, teacher. Yagus knew that he could not refuse, so he nodded calmly. Don't let me down, Argus. You'll get everything you want. The false smile on Yagus' face disappeared completely the moment he turned around. Halloween is only 3 days away, and he needs to complete his own layout in these 3 days. On the way to Snape's office, Argus's mind was racing. Hermione needed protection, otherwise Voldemort might not cast any spell on her that he didn't know about. But it's obviously not enough to protect Hermione alone. If Voldemort can't catch her, he can catch Draco, Pansy, Daphne and others. The effect is the same. It is best to establish a long-term gathering point for the crowd and ensure that they all come to the hall in the evening. The establishment of this gathering point cannot have anything to do with him, otherwise Voldemort will still be suspicious. And the person who follows you must have a certain level of strength, and at least be able to withstand a few moves under him. And give that person a reason to doubt yourself. According to the progress of the original work, the most suitable candidates are undoubtedly Harry and Ron, but because of his interruption, the two people who were supposed to discover the secret room during the duel with Draco had no chance to enter. Coupled with their half-assed strength, let alone allowing them to sustain a few moves, it would be a blessing to be able to avoid losing them. One by one, available figures appeared in his mind. Eventually it coalesced into a red-haired image. The stalker has been found, but how to organize a long gathering on Halloween? While thinking about it, Argus had already arrived at Snape's office. Seeing the dead fish face of the other party, he immediately shook his head and put all his thoughts on the road to the back of his mind. After all, if you don't concentrate. Snape was really scolding. Finished processing a load of herbs from Snape's office. Argus shook his tired palms and was about to go out to say goodbye when Snape stopped him. Wait a minute, go to the principal's office. Professor Dumbledore has something to ask you. The password for the stone statue at the door is, pile of cockroaches. Okay, Professor. Yagus was a little confused. He should have had little interaction with Dumbledore during this period, right? Could it be that the problem is with the store? Full of doubts, Yagus came to the door of the principal's office. The command sounded and the stone statue opened. Dumbledore was lying on the rocking chair, holding a thick book in his hand. Seeing Yagus coming, he put the book in his hand aside. Agus, can I call you that? Of course, Mr. Principal. Sit down, what would you like to eat? If you don't mind, I think I could have dinner at your place. Yagus gestured to the surrounding torches with his eyes, his meaning was obvious. Lao Dang, why are you calling me so late? If you have anything to say, hurry up. I haven't even eaten yet. Yagos, do you still remember the agreement between us? Remember, it's not you who helps me. It was only now that Argus remembered that he had not had much contact with Harry in the past 2 months. The agreement between the two was only followed by Dumbledore. Yagus couldn't help but smile awkwardly. It's not that I don't want to come into contact with Harry, it's just that I really don't have any chance to come into contact with him. Dumbledore glanced at him, obviously not believing it. But he didn't argue with him and continued. You should be aware of Harry's situation during this period. Yagus thought about it carefully. Without Hermione's supervision, the secret on the third floor was not discovered like in the original novel. Harry's current life is quite fulfilling. Play games with Ron in class and take a nap. After class, I play wizard chess, and if I have nothing to do, I go for a walk around Hagrid's place. No different from ordinary little wizards at Hogwarts. The only difference is his identity as the savior. You notice too. Harry's life is too easy. If this continues, it will weaken his will. You want me to take him to study? It's impossible. With Harry's temperament, he can't sit still in the library. Yagus frowned. Professors are in charge of learning matters, so you don't have to worry about that. What I want you to cultivate is Harry's adventurous spirit. Adventure. Apart from the Forbidden Forest, there is no adventure in Hogwarts. Argus raised his head and met Dumbledore's half-smiling eyes. You want Harry to go to the third floor. Only then did he realize that if the current situation continued, even when Harry graduated, it would be impossible to discover the secret of the third floor. Not to mention facing Voldemort behind Quirrell's head. No wonder Dumbledore became anxious, that's why. As the savior of the magical world, he has to face something, doesn't he? Dumbledore picked up a mouthful of honey candy and put it in his mouth, showing a happy expression. Okay, this is not difficult. Yagus smiled brightly. Just now he was still struggling with how to deal with Hermione and others on Halloween night. Isn't this the way to go? With Harry and Ron as excuses, it would be much easier to handle. You can even kill two birds with one stone and find a reason to talk to Harry again. At this moment, the dinner prepared by the house elf was delivered. Seeing that it was Yagus, Leah hurriedly put away the dinner. Mr. Grindelwald, Leah didn't know it was you who wanted dinner. Leah thought it was the principal who wanted to eat. Please wait a moment, Leah will prepare a new one for you right away. No, Leah, your cooking is great and everything you make is delicious. Yagus was tired all afternoon and was already hungry. He took the food and ate it in big gulps. Leah was so excited that she jumped up and down, completely forgetting that this was the principal's office. Mr. Grindelwald remembers Leah's name. He complimented Leah's food. Leah is an elf with great craftsmanship. Dumbledore's eyes showed surprise. It seems that he did not expect that the house elves in Hogwarts Castle would respect Argus so much. Even as the principal, he is incomparable. When he thought that the house elves at Hogwarts Castle were going to take back Argus's food, he felt a twinge of discomfort in his heart. What do you mean by thinking that the principal wants to eat? I can only eat whatever you prepare casually. It's a shame I've been in charge of Hogwarts for so many years. So, love will disappear, right? Yagus quickly eliminated the food in front of him and let out a sigh of satisfaction. Hand the plate to Leah. Thanks, Leah. It is an honor to serve you, Leah. Leah jumped up and down, snapped her fingers, and disappeared into Dumbledore's office. Mr. Principal, there is a curfew immediately. If there is nothing else, I will go back first. Argus stood up, saluted Dumbledore, and prepared to leave. Dumbledore couldn't help but wonder, why would they? Because here, they get the respect they dream of. Yagus didn't look back and left the office. Dumbledore was left muttering quietly. Respect. Gellert, I can't see through it anymore. Tell me, is he pretending? Leave Dumbledore's office and return to the dormitory. Argus reflected in his mind on the conversation he had just had with Dumbledore. This has become a habit for him. Every night after returning to the dormitory, he will think and summarize his actions and words today. I will also think about whether there are details in other people's words that I have not discovered. Regarding Voldemort, although he and Dumbledore never mentioned it, they tacitly acquiesced to each other's existence. This also convinced Argus that the battle between Harry and Voldemort at the end of the first book was planned by Dumbledore. As for Voldemort's Horcrux, it should also be included in the collection plan. A dog with a collar is a good dog. Yagus lay on the bed and muttered silently. Voldemort's threat today had aroused his vigilance. Voldemort was fully resurrected during the Goblet of Fire, in 1995. It's still some time away from now. He took stock of Voldemort's 7 Horcruxes and found that the only ones he could easily obtain were the diary in Lucius's hand and the diadem from the Room of Requirement. The items belonging to the 4 founders of Hogwarts are easily associated with each other, and these can be given to Dumbledore in exchange for benefits. I just need to keep a notebook as a backup. It's just that it's not the time to hand them over yet. We have to wait until everyone realizes the danger of Voldemort in order to gain the greatest benefits. Teacher, don't blame me. The next day. The wind is gentle and the sun is shining, and the sky is clear. Everything looked the same as usual. The only difference is that in the past, when professors asked questions in class, Yagus always followed the rules. I will answer if you are clicked, and if you are not clicked, I will listen carefully to the lecture. But today he seemed to be more active, a little bit possessed by Hermione. Take the initiative to raise your hand to answer. His profound knowledge combined with abundant practice made his answer even more perfect than the standard answer. Professor McGonagall nodded approvingly, and the eyes of the little wizards around her were full of admiration. There is only one exception. Ron. The jealousy in his eyes is almost overflowing. Even Harry at the table could see the twist in his expression. As a person who has regarded Yagus as his lifelong enemy since the beginning of school, how could he tolerate the other party being so pushy? What made him even more uncomfortable was that his family had an excellent attitude towards Yagus. Even better than my own relative. These days, his mother, Mrs. Molly, even prepared a sweater for Yagus. Even his biological son doesn't have a sweater. This evil Slytherin must have used some dark magic to trick others into being obsessed with him. I have seen in storybooks that many dark wizards use evil magic for their own ulterior purposes. Argus is not that kind of person. Harry replied weakly. Why not? You see, he can't be seen every day, he must be doing something. Ron spoke louder and louder, unaware that the eyes of the people around him had been focused on him. Mr. Weasley. If you don't listen carefully, I won't mind asking you out of the classroom. Professor McGonagall's serious voice sounded. There was a burst of laughter in the classroom, and everyone looked at Ron with mocking eyes. His already bright red hair highlighted his red cheeks. Yes. I'm sorry, Professor McGonagall. A lesson once again made him the laughingstock of everyone. The corners of Yagus's mouth raised slightly, and a dark light appeared in his eyes. There is no need to use any means to deal with such brainless people. A little temptation is enough to get him hooked. After class, Ron and Harry fled in a hurry amidst countless taunts. However, Yagus was surrounded by a group of little fans, chatting and laughing with others. He even had time to look at the two of them teasingly. Ron was furious. Dark wizard. Don't let me find a chance, otherwise I will teach him a lesson. Okay, Ron, Argus didn't do anything. He just answered a few questions. You can answer them if you want. Harry was speechless for his friend. He just had a soft ear, and his previous life was too lonely and he had never made friends. As a result, they are not very good at dealing with interpersonal relationships. But that doesn't mean he's stupid. To put it harshly, Yagus and they were not from the same world at all, and there was absolutely no reason to target them both. Everything was just Ron's jealousy. But his words hit Ron's minefield. If Ron had this ability, he would have shown it off long ago. It's precisely because he doesn't have it that he's so jealous of Yagus. You are still not my friend. Why do you keep speaking for that dark wizard? Of course I am, but Yagus, he is too. What is he? He is the evil Slytherin, the enemy of our Gryffindor. Ron roared at Harry. His tone was laced with guilt and panic that even he himself wasn't aware of. Since entering school, his biggest reliance has been his savior friends. If even this barrier is gone, the subsequent life will be unimaginable. I must investigate his conspiracy. You'll help me, right? Harry. Feeling Ron's hot gaze, Harry wanted to refuse, but hesitated for a long time, and finally nodded. But, how can we investigate with just the two of us? I've thought about this for a long time. Ron excitedly pulled Harry to a corner. His eyes kept glancing around, as if he was conducting some secret operation. The two of us will keep an eye on where he goes every day. If he wants to perform those evil rituals, he will definitely find a place where no one is around to secretly perform them. As long as we catch him, we can expose his conspiracy. Harry was speechless for a moment. I thought you had some good ideas. It took me a long time just to follow. Who doesn't know that Yagus is 3 o'clock in one line every day? What can you track? Unfortunately, Ron was already in trouble now. He was only thinking about how to expose Argus's true identity, and didn't pay attention to Harry's expression at all. Then let's start now. I don't believe he can keep pretending. It was already evening when Argus finished handling the potion in Snape's office. Seeing Ron pretending to be hanging out in the corner and Harry looking guilty, Argus couldn't help but chuckle inwardly. Are you still tracking at this level? Do you want to use your brain? You two are usually more afraid of Snape than the other, but now you dare to get together at the door of his office. If you think about it with your head below, you will know something is wrong. But he did not expose it, and after having dinner in the hall, he returned to the Slytherin lounge with Draco and others. Many people have gathered in the lounge. Since Halloween was coming soon, even the little snakes in Slytherin, most of whom were from noble families, became extremely excited. Under the organization of several senior students, they took the initiative to decorate the lounge hall. The originally slightly cold atmosphere became much warmer. Everyone in a good mood was chattering and discussing what candies they should prepare. The opportunity has come. Yagus waved his magic wand and stepped forward to help, receiving surprised looks from several little girls. Draco looked surprised. It's rare that you didn't go back to the dormitory to read directly today. I'm not a bookworm, I just read books every day. Halloween is coming soon, so I have to prepare some candies, costumes, etc. Yes. Draco had no doubt. In the West, the importance of Halloween is similar to that of Qingming Festival in the East. The meanings are just different. Qingming Festival in the East mainly means remembering relatives, while Halloween in the West means to ward off evil spirits and praise autumn. What are you going to dress up as for Halloween? Pansy seemed very interested in this and asked proactively. I can't tell you this. You will naturally know it when the time comes. However, it seems to me that nothing is prepared in Professor Snape's office. I guess I'm going to be alone this year, right? It should be. I've been at Hogwarts for 3 years, and every year the professor leaves right after dinner. Alas. A senior sister heard this and took the initiative to take over the conversation. I go to the professor's office every day and see that he is always alone. He must be quite lonely. Yagus mentioned it without any trace, stopped making any suggestions, and stopped making any suggestions. Seeing several senior students deep in thought, they nodded with satisfaction. He had seen it when he was in school in his previous life. There are always a few conspicuous people in each class, and they like to talk to the teacher when there is nothing wrong. Chat with the teacher in your spare time, give gifts to the teacher or play together during holidays. With them taking the lead, other students are forced to follow suit. In this way, Draco and others can be forced to follow them to Snape's office. Once people from other colleges know about it, they will naturally follow suit for the sake of their own college's face. When people from several colleges get together, it can be over in just a short while. In this way, you can naturally use the professor to protect the people around you. Even if Voldemort knew, he couldn't blame himself. After all, I didn't propose the matter, and I didn't even participate. Why should you have anything to do with me? In the blink of an eye, Halloween has arrived. The Hogwarts duo of Fat Catfish and Lobster always thought they hadn't been discovered by Argus. I was secretly happy. As everyone knows, every move of the two of them is under the surveillance of Yagus. At the same time, Yagus discovered that several senior students had gathered together. He kept wooing his classmates and prepared to surprise Snape on Halloween. It's just that Argus felt that with Snape's temper, he would definitely be surprised, but happy, not necessarily. Other colleges' conspicuous bags followed suit, and a large group of people walked towards the offices of their respective deans. Noticing the unhappy Hermione in the crowd, Argus breathed a sigh of relief and began to prepare his next move. Percy. Yes, the person he planned to follow him tonight was none other than Percy. The prefect of Gryffindor, the famous academic master of Hogwarts, and the blood of Weasley. Adding the three together, his strength cannot be underestimated. Although he didn't do much in the original work, defeating the puppet minister chosen by Voldemort in the final battle was enough to prove his strength. If it weren't for Hermione, he would probably be the British Minister of Magic in the future. Originally, he had been thinking about how to seduce the other party. Now with Harry and Ron, they would definitely follow him if they saw him sneaking away. It is reasonable for Percy to catch up and protect them both. As for the issue of escaping, with the Marauders map in hand, Yagus was not worried. The script has been written and everything is ready, just waiting for the actors to appear. Soon came night. Hogwarts is brightly lit, and pumpkin lanterns are hung all over the passage stairs. In order to highlight the Halloween atmosphere, even the ceiling of the hall has changed. Set off a weird atmosphere. Professors from various colleges sat on the professor's chair in turn, with smiles on their faces. Only Snape's face was as black as carbon. The same is true for the students in various houses. The students in Slytherin are dejected, and the other houses are like Crazy Teddy. Yagus shook his head. TCH, I thought you would have some strange costumes, Yagus. It turns out to be the god of death. Draco complained disdainfully while eating. Yagus smiled and did not reply. Black is the best hidden color. He wore a black robe as a god of death just to facilitate movement and concealment. After scanning the hall and confirming that Hermione, Pansy and others were present, Argus' hand quietly tightened his wand. Boom. The restaurant door was pushed open violently. Quirrell stumbled in. Troll. In the underground classroom. There's a troll in the underground classroom. As soon as these words came out, the originally bustling and noisy hall fell into dead silence. Do you know? After saying that, Quirrell fell to the ground. The entire hall instantly erupted into amazing screams. Countless people looked panicked and fled towards the gate in a hurry. Yagus did not choose to speak at this time. Now appeasing students can certainly gain a lot of reputation, but it will also make him attract more attention. It is extremely detrimental to subsequent actions. Dumbledore stood up slowly. Quiet. Please don't panic, don't panic. Now, the prefects are taking the students from each college back to their dormitories. Teachers, come with me to the underground classroom. With Dumbledore's order, the students gradually calmed down. Follow the prefects out of the door in turn. Snape showed a hint of panic, and then quietly left through the back door. Yagus also took action at this time. Harry, look at that dark wizard. Ron's eyes lit up. He grabbed Harry's wizard robe and whispered in his ear. Harry glanced around and found Argus' figure quietly falling at the end of the line. Can't help but have some doubts. Does he really have any hidden secrets? He's gone. Quick. Let's catch up with him. Ron couldn't wait to pull Harry and chase him in the direction where Argus left. Oblivious to Percy's roll call. Ron Weasley. Not far away, Percy watched helplessly as the two left the team and couldn't help but shout. He wanted to tell the two of them to stop, but he was also afraid that they would be discovered and their points would be deducted. He gritted his teeth and looked at his girlfriend, the Ravenclaw prefects Penelope and the Weasley twins. George, Fred, you two and Penelope bring the two people from the academy back to the lounge. I have something to do. Under the confused gazes of the three people, they chased after Harry and Ron. Harry followed Argus, and Percy followed Harry. A group of people came all the way to the third floor. Through the Marauder's map, Argus had already known the secret passage here, and took advantage of the blind spot in Harry's sight to sneak into the secret passage. Then he followed the secret passage to a secluded corner, waited for the Slytherin members to pass by, and then quietly followed him to the end. On the other side, Harry and the duo, who had lost sight of Argus, were as anxious as Teddy who couldn't vent. What's going on? Why are people missing? I don't know. No matter, he must be nearby, let's look for him quickly. How could Ron care so much? He immediately dived into the darkroom on the third floor. Harry had no choice but to follow. Percy, who was following the two of them far away, was dumbfounded when he saw this scene. No, brother, are you two so brave? This is a restricted area. You two think Gryffindor has too many points, why don't you want to make it more difficult? He opened his mouth, wanting to stop the two of them, but he was afraid that the noise would be too loud and attract other people's attention, so he had to speed up and chase after them. The two of them, Harry, walked along the gloomy passage and arrived at the door of the secret room. There is no way. Harry and Ron looked at each other. Without Hermione, the two of them couldn't even cast a lock-picking spell, so they could only stare at the door. Squeak. Just then, the door suddenly opened. Snape limped out with an injury on his foot. Seeing the two Harrys, they were obviously stunned. Harry and Ron were also dumbfounded, not expecting to meet Snape here. Good, very good. Snape laughed angrily, noticing that Harry saw the wound on his leg and immediately covered it with his robe. Mr. Potter, Mr. Weasley, you better have a legitimate reason for being here. We. Harry stammered, and Ron didn't even dare to speak. Mr. Potter, if you want to deal with trolls and show yourself as a savior, you should go to the underground classroom. Or, you're so stupid that you can't even tell the difference between the third floor and the underground. Percy, who arrived belatedly, saw Snape standing in front of them. I have even thought about how to arrange some dishes for the banquet. But considering that Ron was his younger brother and a Gryffindor prefect, he still stepped forward. Professor Snape. Harry and Ron are. He thought for a long time, but couldn't think of a reasonable excuse to explain their behavior. If it were the dean of another college, there might be a chance for relaxation. It just happened to be Snape. Just when he was racking his brains to think about how to explain, he was unaware that a figure in the distance was looking at them with gloomy eyes. I knew it wasn't that simple. In the shadows in the distance, Voldemort's face looked gloomy. If there was only one Snape, he would still dare to take a gamble. But now, it's not just Snape, but also Harry and the two Weasleys. If something happens to a few people, Dumbledore must not turn Hogwarts over. In his current state, a head-on conflict with Dumbledore was no different than seeking death. What should I do, Master? Should we wait until they leave? Quirrell's cowardly voice made Voldemort even more angry. What else are you going for? How long can a troll stop Dumbledore? He's coming for us before we get there. Voldemort took a deep breath. Now I can only pray to my good disciple to see if he can get the thing. But depending on the situation, he might not be that honest. Voldemort could confirm at the first sight that Argus was the same type of person as him. There is ambition hidden in the eyes. It's just that the other party has more resources than himself. Also better at hiding. Without finding a chance to capture Hermione and others, Voldemort would not believe that Argus was willing to serve him loyally. But he still hopes that Yagus can get the magic stone. After all, Argus still has room for negotiation, but Dumbledore will not even give him a chance to negotiate. Let's go. This operation failed. We can only look for another opportunity. Voldemort told Quirrell to leave, but he already had another plan in mind. Quirrell and his condition are getting worse and worse. If this continues, they may be unable to hold on before they can get the magic stone. We must find a way. Third floor. Snape stared at Harry and Ron coldly. Professor. I didn't ask you, Mr. Weasley. Snape didn't give Percy a chance to speak. Percy saw it and was anxious in his heart. I wish I could speak for them both myself. Let me tell you why you two came here. At least you can still hear a fart. Harry hesitated for a long time, but still could not withstand Snape's pressure. Professor, we saw Argus coming here, so that's why. Snort. Snape scoffed. Then please, Lord Savior, tell me, where is Mr. Grindelwald, who you are following, now? We lost track. Mr. Potter, Mr. Grindelwald doesn't do nothing like you every day. We saw him coming to the third floor with our own eyes. Ron couldn't help it anymore and retorted. Then please tell me the location of Mr. Grindelwald, Mr. Weasley, the great detective. Apparently, our two detectives found no evidence. Snape's face became more mocking. Because you violated school rules and trespassed into forbidden areas, plus you slandered your classmates. 10 points from Gryffindor. Remember, it's 10 points per person. Ron was still a little unconvinced, so Percy pulled the two of them behind him. I was afraid that these two live dads would speak again. Professor Snape, I'm so sorry, I'll take them both back right now. After saying that, he immediately hugged the two of them and left. Snape watched the three of them go, and after a long time, he looked thoughtfully in the direction of Quirrell's office. On the way back to the Gryffindor common room, Ron didn't stop talking. Snape must have hidden him. That evil Grindelwald goes to his office every day. Who knows what shameful things they are secretly doing. That's enough. Ronnie. Percy interrupted Ron angrily. Don't you think you've caused enough trouble? Do you know how long it will take for us to get these points back? We are brave Gryffindors, how can we just watch the evil Slytherin? Have you found someone? I've been chasing you for a long time, and I didn't even see the shadow of Argus. Percy didn't give Ron a chance to speak at all. He was embarrassed to reprimand Harry, but he was still very confident about Ron. What's more, Mrs. Molly personally told him to be optimistic about Ron when she came last time. If she knew that Ron was actively provoking Argus again, with her temper, she might actually take Ron home. After thinking about it, Percy felt that Ron was his biological brother after all. We can't really let him go to college at home. Percy, we really saw Argus running to the third floor. If you don't believe it, you can ask Harry. Percy looked at Harry suspiciously and saw that Harry was silent. His brows knitted together. I'll take you back to the Gryffindor lounge first, and I'll confirm this. As soon as the three of them returned to the lounge, they saw the Weasley twins holding a box of colorful candies and talking to the people next to them. As soon as the two saw Percy, they immediately put the candy behind them. Oh, our prefect is back with Harry and little Ronnie. How is it? How many points have been deducted this time? As soon as these words came out, many people in the lounge hall immediately looked at Harry and Ron with unkind expressions. Okay, stop talking. Has the troll issue been resolved? It's solved. Professor McGonagall came here in person. Originally we wanted to ask if the party would go on tonight, but it depends on the situation. George looked around and shrugged. It'll be fine if it's solved. You told me last time that Yagus wanted to return the notes to me, but couldn't find the right time, right? Just in time, keep an eye on them and don't let them run around. I'll get the notes back. Percy made a random excuse and walked towards the Slytherin lounge. He thought a lot on the way back to the Gryffindor common room. Ron and Harry were very honest during this period and would not go to the restricted area on the third floor for no reason. His younger brother didn't have the brains to quickly make up a reason, let alone bite Yagus at the risk of being taken home by his mother. Whether it's for Gryffindor's points or for other reasons, he has to see it with his own eyes before he can rest assured. When I arrived at the Slytherin lounge, it happened that several chiefs, including Amiri Carlo and Yagus, were guarding the door. Percy. What are you doing here? Gryffindor and Slytherin have never dealt with each other. As soon as they saw the other party's prefect coming over, they immediately became very angry. Amiri Carlo, I don't want to argue with you. Percy didn't want to pay attention to the other party. Look at Yagus. Yagus, I heard from George and Fred that you have been looking for me to return your notes these past 2 days. While you are here today, I will come over and get them. Okay, wait a moment, I'll put it in the dormitory. Yagus saw through Percy's little thoughts at a glance and took the initiative to go to the lounge and dormitory. Amiri Carlo was disdainful of Percy's behavior. I even came over to ask for a notebook. You are so petty. Percy also realized that his behavior was inappropriate, but the words had already been spoken and it was too late to undo them. So I stopped dwelling on this topic and turned to sidetracking. Your Slytherin chief is quite responsible. They are all guarding the door. Of course. Amiri Carlo said proudly. Speaking of which, it was Yagus who proposed this. Let the chief guard the outside so that if anything happens, the students inside can be protected. He proposed it. Percy was a little surprised, but he was quietly relieved. From the third floor to the Slytherin lounge, you have to pass several stairs. If Yagus really went to the third floor, there would definitely not be enough time to go back and forth. He had a good impression of Yagus and didn't really believe that he would do anything that violated school rules. Since the other party proposed the chief goalkeeper, it proved that he had been with the chief of Slytherin. In this case, how could he go to the third floor? Thinking of this, he felt a surge of guilt in his heart. Last time Ron caused such a big trouble, the other party didn't care and even took the initiative to comfort him. On the other hand, I doubted him after hearing a few words, and even came to verify it myself. I really deserve to die. He secretly decided in his heart that next time George and Fred would mess with Ron, he would pretend not to see it. Don't care. Snort. Argus sent the notes and handed them to Percy. The strange thing is that it was his own notebook, but Percy felt it was too hot to hold it. The mocking looks from the people around him made his face feel hot. When my brother did something wrong, the other party not only did not ask for compensation, but also generously forgave him. The only request is to lend me a few notebooks. As a result, he even came to ask for it. For the first time, Percy condemned his impulse from the bottom of his heart. Meeting Yagus's clear eyes. Well, the guilt is even deeper. Yagus, actually I'm not in a hurry. If you haven't finished reading it, you can keep it. Percy hesitated and squeezed out a sentence. Oh, you've already come to your door to ask for it, and you still say this. Is it hypocritical? Alexia curled her lips in disdain, which made Percy even more embarrassed and angry. You misunderstood, Alexia. I told the Weasley twins before that I wanted to return the book. I originally wanted to deliver it in person, but Percy saving me a lot of trouble by coming to pick it up. Argus explained for Percy, which slightly relieved his embarrassment. Percy looked at Argus gratefully. I still have some notes. I'll pack them up tonight and send them to you tomorrow. What if Ronnie, forget it. See you tomorrow. Percy wanted to say something, but he didn't know how to say it. He said my brother is following you, please be careful. Or is it that my brother just slandered you at Professor Snape's place and should I apologize to you in advance? He bet that if he said that, it wouldn't take more than the next day for it to spread throughout Hogwarts. After Percy left, the chiefs saw that it was getting late and returned to the lounge hall one by one. As soon as Argus walked in, Draco rushed over. Yagos. You will come tomorrow, right? Tomorrow. What's going on tomorrow? Yagus didn't react for a moment, but Daphne, who was not far away, explained for Draco. Tomorrow's Quidditch match between Slytherin and Gryffindor will be Draco's first official appearance. He has been pestering us for a long time, asking us to come together to cheer him on. Yagos, you don't even know such an important thing. Draco was a little dissatisfied, and Argus shook his head helplessly. You forgot, I can't use a broomstick. Of course I don't care about these things. Draco woke up from a dream and stammered. Agus, I didn't mean that, I am. I know, it's okay. I'll go cheer for you tomorrow. Argus patted Draco's shoulder in reassurance. If he remembered correctly, Quirrell would attack Harry on the Quidditch pitch, trying to knock him off his broomstick. It was Snape who saved him. I don't know if Harry is just a substitute player now and will he have a chance to play. The next morning, the Gryffindor and Slytherin table had a distinct smell of gunpowder. For school students, the Quidditch game is a big event. What's more, it's about the Academy Cup. Teenage children still have a strong sense of collective honor. Even if they don't say anything openly, they are silently cheering for their college in their hearts. Because it was Saturday, the little wizard who had no classes seemed even more excited. When Argus walked to the Slytherin table, a group of Quidditch members headed by Marcus were gathering together, preparing to discuss tactics after dinner. Not far away, on the long table of Gryffindor, a group of little lions were annoyed that the hourglass of the house cup had dropped again. Harry and Ron lowered their heads guiltily, trying their best to muddle through. But how could Snape give him this chance? Good luck, Potter. Then again, since you dare to go to the restricted area on the third floor, Quidditch should be a piece of cake. Even if the opponent is Slytherin. Oh, I forgot. You seem to be just a substitute seeker. It's not certain whether you can play on the field. After saying that, he turned around and left without any nostalgia. Harry and Ron were left stunned. The two of them didn't sleep well all night because of this incident, and they didn't even dare to say a word for fear of being discovered by others. You finally managed to hide it. This guy asked you to steal it. The little lions of Gryffindor looked at the two of them with disdain and disgust on their faces. If it weren't for Ron's relationship with Percy and the Weasley twins, they would have been sacked and tricked. After 2 months of torture, Ron's face was much thicker than before. I can still eat. Anyway, if there are too many lice, you are not afraid of being bitten. This kind of scene can happen once or twice. The more you do it, the more you'll get used to it. Harry stared at Snape's injured leg without blinking, and his mind unconsciously recalled the scene with Hagrid at Gringotts before entering school. Hagrid seemed to have taken something very important from there. Could it be that Professor Dumbledore put something on the third floor, and Snape took advantage of the troll riot last night to steal it? He quickly shared his thoughts with Ron. Ron's eyes widened. That must be it. That evil Slytherin, together with Snape, wants to steal Dumbledore's treasure. We clearly saw him last night, but he disappeared on the third floor. Snape must have helped. Harry froze. He only talked about Snape. What does it have to do with Argus? But then I thought about it, and what Ron said was not unreasonable. Argus indeed disappeared from their eyes. Besides Snape, there was no other suspicious person at the scene who could help cover it up. Eat quickly. After we finish, let's go find Hagrid and find out what they want to take away. Ron was very excited and couldn't wait to urge. Harry shook his head. No, I'm going to discuss tactics with Wood later. Wait until I finish the match. After the match, we'll go find Hagrid. On the other side, Yagus held a knife in one hand and a fork in the other, elegantly cutting a piece of bacon and fried egg into his mouth. Suddenly, I felt like there was something extra in my arms. His expression remained unchanged, and he looked nearby with his peripheral vision. Saw Professor Quirrell walking past the Slytherin table. Feeling relieved, he calmly put down his knife and fork and walked out of the hall. When he came to a secluded corner, he quietly reached out his hand to his arms. Inside was a note with only one sentence written on it. Come to my office. The next second, the flame ignited and swallowed the note cleanly. There's going to be trouble again, can't you just stay calm for a few days? Yagus made his way to Quirrell's office. There was no one inside. After waiting inside for a while, Quirrell opened the door and walked in. The moment he saw Yagus, his expression gradually changed. The original timidity in his body turned into cold and powerful. Where's what I want? I was followed and couldn't get it. Argus's very bachelor reply made Voldemort stunned for a moment. He thought that Yagus would use various methods to quibble, but the sudden straight ball surprised him. Is being followed your excuse? Voldemort's tone became dangerous, and a violent aura filled the air. Didn't you get it too? Argus replied calmly, showing no fear at all because of Voldemort's changes. How did you know I passed? You don't look like someone who would bet all your chips on a kid like me. What's more, you should have seen that Snape is inside, and I will also die if I go in. Snape is my loyal servant. As long as you reveal your identity to him. Teacher. Before Voldemort could finish speaking, he was interrupted by Argus. You know better than I do that your loyal servants are now in Azkaban. Voldemort was stunned for a moment, and his expression became even more gloomy. Yes, he didn't know that after his death, almost all the truly loyal Death Eaters were liquidated. All that's left is just scraps. Don't people like Barty Crouch Jr., Amicus Callow, and Bella have backgrounds? If they wanted to, they could use their power and connections to escape like Lucius or Karkaroff. But they didn't. He resolutely chose to stick to his identity as a Death Eater. Compared with them, Snape's credibility really needs to be questioned. After the last action, Dumbledore has been on guard. The things you want may have been moved to other places. Continue to act, the gains outweigh the losses. Argus looked at Voldemort's face and continued to speak. You want to disobey my orders. Argus's words made Voldemort, who was in a bad mood, even more angry. Raising his hand as a magic spell to teach him a lesson. The miserable green light shot straight towards Yagus's face. Argus would not suffer like that group of Death Eaters. Tighten your wand and counterattack with the disarming spell. Voldemort was much weaker now than when he first came into contact with him. During this time period, even in the original work, Voldemort needed to drink the blood of unicorns to stay alive, not to mention that in addition to his frequent appearances, he also had to teach magic to Argus. The degree of weakness is even worse. Zitza. Two beams of light collided fiercely in the classroom. Yagus flicked the red beam emitted by the disarming spell hard. Along with an explosion, a large crater was blown out of the office floor. How could Voldemort allow anyone to resist him? He stood up with a dangerous smile on his face. It seems that my dear disciple feels that he is quite capable. How dare you fight against the teacher? Looking at the magical light emitting from Voldemort's wand, Argus smiled faintly. Teacher, given your current state, it's better to save some magic power. Voldemort was furious and laughed. Are you threatening me? I don't dare, just some small suggestions. Voldemort's eyes were fixed on Argus, and after a while, he sat back on the chair. As early as some time ago, he had already discovered that he was beginning to be unable to figure out Yagus's strength. Questions asked through Yagus before, as well as the other party's answers. At least he can figure out the opponent's progress. But now, as Yagus's problems gradually deepened and his ideas were wild, even he was surprised by the other party's ideas from time to time. As for how far the other party studied it, Voldemort was completely blind. He is cruel, not stupid. He knows only how many kilograms and tails he has left. Even if he didn't know Yagus's strength, he still knew that with his talent, his progress would definitely be far beyond his imagination. If he takes action rashly, even if he wins, the result will be unbearable for him. After thinking about this clearly, he hid the murderous intention in his heart. His eyes glanced at Yagus coldly. Remember what happened last night first. In the evening, you come with me to the Forbidden Forest. Okay, dear teacher. In the afternoon, there was a Quidditch match. Although there were some unpleasant episodes yesterday. But this does not affect the little wizard's enthusiasm for Quidditch. Compared to the Buddhist Hufflepuff and the Ravenclaw who spends time in the library every day. Slytherin and Gryffindor, who were already bitter rivals, were far beyond ordinary in terms of excitement and attention. The Slytherin chiefs were in the first row, staring at the players on both sides in midair. At the same time, a platinum blonde man wearing a gorgeous wizard robe and holding a bright silver cane slowly walked towards Slytherin. Hearing the sound of footsteps behind them, all the Slytherin chiefs turned their heads and saw the person in front of them and hurried forward to say hello. Hello, Mr. Malfoy. Dear Mr. Malfoy, nice to meet you. Mr. Malfoy, greetings from Amiri Caro. A series of slightly flattering voices sounded. Not only the chief Slytherin, but also ordinary students were alarmed and came over to increase their presence. Even among the 28 holy tribes, the Malfoy family's strength is at the top. As the head of the Malfoy family, Lucius's status needs to be treated with caution even by their fathers. Not to mention these little kids. Facing everyone's greetings, Lucius just nodded lightly. His expression was cold and he didn't even look at them. Even if these people chatter in front of him, they will only reply occasionally. But when Yagis' figure appeared in front of him, his original arrogant expression immediately turned into a deep respect. Mr. Grindelwald, long time no see. Argus smiled politely. Long time no see, Mr. Malfoy. I didn't expect you to come to watch Draco's game in person. I'm really flattered. Draco is my friend and I promised him to come. It is the Malfoy family's honor to be your friend. Looking at Lucius, who was completely different from before, a group of Slytherin members smiled bitterly. They had only seen the news about Yagis in the newspaper before. Although they were shocked, they were in the same school as them. In addition, I was surrounded by classmates, so I didn't feel anything when actually getting along. Until now, people who even their fathers needed to be flattered were so groveling in front of Argus. The strong contrast made them unable to believe their eyes for a while. The Malfoy family's business must be good recently, right? I heard from Aunt Vita that you have provided many channels during this period. No, it's just a few connections, nothing compared to you. Lucius's attitude was very low, which vividly demonstrated the Malfoy family's tradition of seeking advantages and avoiding disadvantages. The conversation between the two did not end until the fireworks that symbolized the start of the game were lit in the sky. Mr. Grindelwald, I want to say hello to an old friend. Do you want to come with me? No need, I'll just go with my classmates. Argus certainly knew who the old friend Lucius was talking about. Snape. The two went to the same school and were both Death Eaters, and had known each other for many years. In his previous life, he had heard many people say that Snape was Draco's godfather, and he specifically asked Draco about it after coming to Slytherin. The only response was Draco's confused look. If you think about it carefully, Snape's attitude towards Draco in the original book can only be regarded as taking care of the children of an old friend, and at most it is pleasing to the eye. While I was thinking about it, the game in the stadium had already begun. As Mrs. Hooch whistled, the Quaffle and Bludger sprang out at the speed of light. Draco stood in midair, avoiding the Bludger while observing his surroundings, trying to find the trace of the golden snitch as quickly as possible. The moment he saw Lucius and Argus, the smile on his face was obviously brighter. Just when he was still struggling with how to stand out, a sudden change occurred. The Gryffindor Seeker was hit by a sudden bludger. Falling straight from midair, Slytherin's batter looked confused and didn't realize that there was someone in the stands silently chanting something. He remembered that he was clearly hitting the ball towards wood, but why did it fly to the opponent's Seeker? Could it be said that he has mastered the legendary ball fighting technique? Can you make a bludger turn? Oh, the Gryffindor Seeker was knocked off his broomstick by Slytherin. Hope he is safe and sound. Evil Slytherin. Lee Jordan's last muttered words prompted Professor McGonagall to cough. There was a wave of dissatisfaction on the Gryffindor platform. Ron, a loyal Quidditch fan, was so angry that he almost yelled. Madame Hooch quickly announced a pause in the game and sent the injured Gryffindor member to Madame Pomfrey. The game is paused at half-time. The Gryffindor members returned to the lounge with solemn expressions. Wood, how is Moxie? Are the injuries serious? Harry, the substitute seeker, hurried over to ask. Wood looked at Harry with a heavy expression. Harry, next, you have to be ready to play. Harry looked at his height and found that he was obviously a head shorter than those around him. Are you scared? Kind of. It's okay. Wood patted Harry on the shoulder. It was like this the first time I played. But no matter what you do, there is always a first time. Come on. After a short break, Mrs. Hooch returned from the school doctor's office. The game starts again. Look, Gryffindor has their new seeker. The famous savior, Harry Potter. Harry sat on his broomstick and looked around the arena nervously and excitedly. Draco stood not far away and said, Harry. This time we are going to have a good fight. Certainly. Hurry. The whistle blows and the game begins again. Compared to just now, the confrontation between the two sides was more intense this time. Slytherin made no secret of his tactics, knocking down Gryffindor players one by one with acts that were close to fouls. Harry saw it in his eyes and felt anxious in his heart. Just then, the golden snitch appeared in front of him. Harry chased after him almost reflexively. Draco followed. Although it started a little late, the speed of Nimbus 2000 is far beyond that of the old antiques from Hogwarts. In just a few seconds, he was on par with Harry. Agus, who do you think can get the golden snitch, Draco or Harry Potter? Slytherin prefect Emiri Carlo thought for a long time before summoning the courage to talk to Argus. Ever since he saw Lucius's attitude towards Yagus with his own eyes, he always felt guilty about Yagus. Draco, his broomstick is much better than Harry's, and his mentality is stronger than Harry's. Although the flying talent is slightly different, it's not much different. Argus's attention was not on Quidditch, and he kept glancing at the professor's chair with his peripheral vision. Seemingly seeing that Yagus was not very interested in this aspect, Emiri Carlo did not dwell on this topic. Instead, he concentrated on watching the game. As time went by, the advantages of Draco's broom became more and more obvious. Harry was firmly behind him. Harry was anxious, but there was nothing he could do. Suddenly, he felt a restlessness under his crotch. Immediately afterwards, the obedient broomstick started shaking uncontrollably. The amplitude is getting bigger and bigger, and there is a faint tendency to throw him down. There were waves of exclamations from the stands. Argus vaguely saw Quirrell's eyes staring directly at Harry from the platform. Make a prayer gesture with your hands. My teacher, you can't help it after all. What good will it do you to start now? There are so many professors here, let alone Harry falling off the broom. Even if you are resurrected in full glory, they will be able to defeat you. Below Quirrell, Lucius was taking Snape to reminisce, bragging about his son's excellence. Forcing Snape to take no time to cast a counter curse on the broom. Harry's good friend Ron doesn't have Hermione's brains at all, let alone Hermione's meticulous observation. Faced with Harry's crisis, he could only stamp his feet anxiously. What are you going to do next? Dean. With no one to protect you, it won't be long before your Harry falls off his broom. Yagus was paying attention to the movements of several people as if he were watching a show. He's not Harry's nanny, so he can't always think about him. The worst thing is that it falls down, what a big deal. In other words, Snape would help at the risk of exposure. But Argus forgot that there was also his true love on the same stage with Harry. Draco. Seeing that his friend was about to fall to the ground, Draco turned around and rushed in the direction of Harry, ignoring the golden snitch that was so close at hand. At the critical moment, Draco grabbed Harry's hand. He was not left behind. But the shaking of the broom continued, and it directly hit Draco's Nimbus 2000. Click. With a soft sound, Harry's broom broke. At the last moment, Draco pulled Harry onto his broom. Under the buffer of Nimbus 2000, the two of them hit the ground heavily. After a short period of silence, the scene was immediately followed by a roaring tsunami. Argus watched the two men's movements and couldn't help but think of the scene in the original book where Harry fished Draco out of the fire. He shook his head helplessly and smiled. It can be regarded as repaying Harry's kindness in advance for saving people. The Quidditch match ended with Slytherin's victory. After enjoying Gryffindor's thanks, Draco turned around and saw Lucius's cold face. The smile suddenly froze on his face. Dad, who asked you to do such a dangerous thing? Do you know the consequences of falling from the sky? Dad, Harry. Harry is my friend. So what? There are so many professors in the stands, and Madame Pomfrey in the school doctor's office, but it's not your turn to help. After Lucius finished speaking, he seemed to have noticed something. He took a deep breath and barely suppressed the anger in his heart. Go back quickly, I still have something to do, and I will settle the score with you later. Shortly after Draco left sadly, Argus' figure emerged from the shadows. Mr. Grindelwald, this is a joke for you. Mr. Malfoy, Draco did a good job, there is no need for you to be so angry. As early as when Lucius reprimanded Draco, Argus was not far away. But he knew that no matter how good his relationship with Draco was, he was not qualified to dictate his parents' education. When the training was almost complete, he quietly revealed a breath. You also know how dangerous what just happened was. This child actually did it for his so-called friend. Speaking of Draco, Lucius was no different from ordinary parents, he also had headaches for his children. It's good to have friends, Mr. Malfoy, let me ask you. Do you have any true friends now? One sentence made Lucius stunned. Yes, I don't know when it started. I no longer have any friends who can tell the truth. He speaks human words to others and lies to ghosts. Sometimes even he himself doesn't know whether what he says is true or false. Classmate at Hogwarts, childhood playmate. They all parted ways for various reasons. There was barely one Snape left, and he could only be described as an old friend, not a close friend. After an unknown amount of time, he woke up from his memories. Looking at Yagis's back, he suddenly said something. And you, Argus, who are your true friends? My path is all alone. Competition is over. Ron and Hagrid find Harry. Bless Merlin, luckily Harry you're okay. Hagrid was very happy. The Malfoy boy did a good job. Although his father is a nuisance, it is undeniable that he and Argus are both good people. People in Slytherin are all liars. Who knows if they are pretending on purpose. I think the problem with Harry's broom is because they secretly tampered with it. Ron couldn't bear to hear anyone praising Draco and Argus in front of him, and said unconvinced. Hagrid frowned slightly. That's nonsense. Why did they cast a spell on Harry's broom? Why am I talking nonsense? Last night we saw Argus sneaking into the secret room on the 3rd floor and saw Snape from there. Impossible, they can't get in with Lu Wei here. Lu Wei. That's right, a cute little guy. I bought it from an Irishman last year. Each of the 3 big heads is more arrogant than the last. Hagrid seemed very proud of Lu Wei when he mentioned it. Dumbledore asked me to borrow it just to guard. At this point, he seemed to realize something, and his words stopped abruptly. Guarding what? Harry asked quickly. I can't say anything anymore. Stop asking. Don't ask me any more questions about the 3rd floor, it's top secret. Hagrid felt deeply regretful for his omission and immediately ended the topic. But Hagrid, whatever it is, Snape wants to steal it anyway. And that evil Slytherin. Ron added. Stop talking nonsense. Snape is the teacher of Hogwarts, and Argus is the head of Slytherin. They don't need to take risks. Whoever he is, we did see that Slytherin go to the 3rd floor last night, and Snape was there too. Absolutely true. Ron and Harry sang along, making Hagrid a little more irritable. Listen, all of you, listen to me. You are taking care of things that you shouldn't take care of. That is very dangerous. The things Lu Wei takes care of are limited to Professor Dumbledore and Nico Flamel. Nicholas Flamel. I shouldn't have said that. Hagrid, realizing that he might get into serious trouble, didn't dare to say another word. He hurriedly hid in his cabin. Nicholas Flamel. Who is Nicolas Flamel? Have no idea. The two stared at each other with big eyes and small eyes. Their 4 eyes and 2 glasses were completely black. Afternoon. Argus arrives at Hagrid's hut. One is to see how much materials Hagrid has stored during this period, and the other is to find out which route he will take to patrol the Forbidden Forest tonight. Given Voldemort's character, if he met Hagrid at night, giving him a good time would only put Voldemort in a good mood. Hagrid is one of its most important suppliers and there must be no problems. Woof woof. What surprised Yagis was that Hagrid's hut was particularly quiet today. Only Yaya hangs around nearby. No sign of Hagrid at all. Yaya, why are you alone here? Where is Hagrid? Yaya is a very smart dog. He grabbed the corner of Yagis' robe and pulled it towards the house. As soon as he entered the door, Yagis smelled the pungent smell of alcohol. Yagos, you are here. Sit. Sit quickly. Hagrid drank a lot of wine, and his red cheeks could still be seen through his beard. Walking became a little wobbly, and I almost fell to the ground when I lost my balance. Why do you drink so much wine? Yagus frowned slightly and helped Hagrid sit down. Yagos, I seem to have stabbed someone. Hagrid hesitated for a moment and asked cautiously, what would you do if you accidentally let out a very important secret? A very important secret. Yagus pretended to be confused. But I already know it in my heart. It seems that Hagrid still revealed the information about Nicholas Flamel to Harry. Don't even think about it. If it is really important, how could you, a gamekeeper, know about it? Dumbledore just saw that you were lax in your mouth, deliberately let you know, and took the opportunity to reveal it to Harry. Dumbledore can fool an honest person like you about this kind of thing. Yagus thought for a while and answered seriously, did you keep this secret for other people? Yes. Yes, no. Hagrid tried to hide it. It's a friend of mine. He accidentally revealed the secret that others asked him to keep. Did your friend do this on purpose? No, he just accidentally let it slip. Yagus smiled gently. Since he didn't mean it, he should take the initiative to go to the other party and admit his mistake. No matter what the outcome is, at least I can feel better. The sooner the other party knows, there may be a chance to recover. You're right. Hagrid slapped his thigh and stood up. I'm going to find Dumbledore right now. Just after taking 2 steps, a sudden feeling of dizziness came over me. The whole person fell heavily to the ground. Collapse. Behind him, Yagus slowly put away his wand. Cast a levitating spell to place Hagrid on the bed. The giant's magic resistance far exceeds that of ordinary wizards. Even if Hagrid is only a hybrid, ordinary magic spells cannot hurt him. What's more, Yagus didn't have murderous intentions at all, he just wanted Hagrid to sleep well. After drinking so much wine, I won't be able to sleep until tomorrow morning at least. Perfect to miss tonight's patrol. At night, deep in the Forbidden Forest. 2 figures, one tall and one short, were wandering around. The strange roars around them seemed to have no deterrent effect on them. The 2 of them didn't feel like walking in the Forbidden Forest, but more like wandering in the back garden. Mr. Grindelwald, we are not here just to hang out. Seeing Argus looking like he was out for an outing, veins popped up on Voldemort's forehead. If he wasn't so weak that he couldn't even use magic at will. I will never bring Yagus here with me. Not to worry, you should always be wary of the opponent's backstab. Okay, teacher, I will correct my attitude. Yagus promised well in words, but did not change anything in action. Still looking like fishing in troubled waters. Regarding unicorns, he didn't want to get involved at all. Even a wizard of Voldemort's level would be in trouble once this kind of magical creature is blessed with a curse. With Voldemort's character, he would never hesitate to do such dirty work. The other party can't hold it for a few days. I just want to gather more wool and can't commit suicide. Voldemort was fuming, but there was nothing he could do. The main force on this trip is Yagus. If he really falls out with the other party, he will be the one who suffers. After smashing the teeth and swallowing them, Voldemort and Argus continued to explore the depths of the Forbidden Forest. Not far away, a rustling sound attracted Yagus' attention. Just when he was hesitating whether to take action, Voldemort's voice of surprise came. Found it. This is it. The goal of our trip. Thanks for watching, please subscribe and support our channel.